Hi everyone, welcome to the stream. We're going to start in 30 seconds, so just letting it start. Hello everyone, welcome to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Glad to have you with me this morning or this evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm going to be answering people's questions today and also going to talk about seasonal preparedness in Chinese medicine, because we're coming into the change of season no matter where you are. So normally this takes a little bit of time for people to jump into the stream, and I'm still testing the right times out for my US audience. So hopefully I'll capture some people in the US today, some of my lovely subscribers who kind of miss out because in Australia it's the opposite time of the world to you. At all times we're the opposite. So it's 9 a.m. here, it's around 9 p.m. I would say in the US. Okay, so let's think about seasonal change, because there's two pillars of seasons in Chinese medicine. Obviously we have winter and summer. So if you're in the US, you're in winter now and you're coming out of winter, and if you're in Australia like me, you're in summer and you're coming out of summer. Now I do have like detailed videos on this on the channel somewhere in there, maybe just sort of like talking about what's spring, preparing for spring, what's summer, what's autumn, maybe preparing for autumn. So if you're in the US, you're actually in the more I don't know, I think it's the better side of the world in terms of not just life in general, I guess. I mean, if people always think it's better on the better how the other side lives, but in terms of with Chinese culture, they have their New Year in spring, and it's like they literally just had Chinese New Year, and they call that Spring Festival. And there's something about starting the year in spring that's actually more powerful than like sort of starting the year in winter, which you would be in the in that hemisphere. Whereas in Australia, when we start New Year, it's like, the peak of almost of summer. It's pretty hot already. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and also make room for people's to questions. So please feel free to answer. You can answer your own question if you want. Please feel free to ask a question. If you have a question, you can ask it in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer it. I'm just going to make sure that microphone's staying where it's supposed to stay. The questions can be about anything. They don't have to be about this particular topic, but I always have like a little topic to start with, because there's usually takes time for people to realize that the stream's running and all the rest of that stuff. So I'm going to talk about the US side of things first. Springtime, coming into summer, coming out of winter. In between those two seasons is spring, because spring is one of the most powerful seasons that we have in Chinese medicine. That we have, full stop. But the way that Chinese medicine sees spring gives you some really good, powerful tools that you can use. So spring is the season of doing new things. So there's almost like a great concept with the new year, and then the Chinese New Year. You've got another chance, another new year. And the momentum of the season is with you to do those new things. So this is the time, right, to be thinking about it now, because the spring hasn't started yet. And I was thinking about this yesterday when I was on my walk. Like, I've been doing a thing called 75 hard. So I do it every day without fail. Like if you fail one of these things, you have to start the whole thing again. So I do it every single day. I do a walk outside, and you'll notice that the season, especially if you do the same thing every day at the same time, you'll notice when the seasons are changing. And I think one of the problems with modern society is that we just don't notice that stuff, because we're so busy with our life, or our life is so disconnected from nature. Now, not for everyone. Some of you guys watching this, hopefully you might be sitting there on a nice farm and enjoying nature. And for the people that have just jumped in, please feel free to ask your own question. We're just starting with the topic first, and then ask away. That's what this stream is for, asking your questions. And I would love to connect with you. Maybe let me know where you're tuning in from. That'd be awesome. So, so spring the seasonal change. Sorry, that's what I was saying. It's gradual. It's not like you wake up one day, it's like, oh, summer. Oh, it's, summer and winter are two peaks. The height of yang is summer and the height of yin is winter. And then the rest of it is just literally a transition to each other. So you want to pay attention to those cues of nature, and then you make those gradual changes. So spring is like a gradual change sort of a thing, moving towards summer, and then autumn or fall in Australia is the same kind of a thing. So then we've got a question there that's awesome. So I'll come to that in 1 second. It's gradual. That's the point. It's like it's a good thing in a way, because it's like, okay, I can think about these things and start to make these changes. So spring is growth. It's new things. Like summer is growth, but spring is like the birth of that growth. So it's like things are starting to bud, starting to conceptualize, like ideas and concepts that you have. And you're coming into the peak of the yang, which is summertime, versus in autumn, it's like I don't want to say a downward spiral into winter, but it's coming into a resting time, whereas spring is coming into a movement and a growth time. So yeah, we follow the seasons, and that's kind of what I want to mention. Now we can pick up more on the seasonal stuff later, but I'll answer this question. Thanks. I don't want to get people's names wrong, how to say it. Adrili? I'm just going to copy your question. So this is a great question about cannabis use. Like, what are the possible effects of the body on long-term cannabis use? So yeah, I'm just going to pop the question into the chat here after it's a tiny bit. It's a tiny bit of a long-winded thing. I worked out how to do it. So this is a great question because there's I've got some answers for you, which is always good. Always good to have an answer. So there's the same way we think about alcohol is one of the ways we can think about cannabis, right? And the same way we think about any kinds of drugs. And it is that anything in Chinese medicine that gives you a euphoric effect, a high effect, that can damage your essence. In TCM, they think of it as your kidney jing, your essence, right? It damages your life force. In classical Chinese medicine, we might not use that term. We might just think of it as it's going to damage your yang, which is all the same concept, right? Now, how does it do that? Why, and why, kind of more importantly, like, why does it do that? So in the concepts of feeling pleasure, pleasure is related to the fire element, and if you're stimulating that fire element like that, it has to act on the Shen, which is your consciousness and your mind, and you're kind of like disturbing that mind in a way. In some way, you're altering it. Like, you might be altering it for a good reason. Like, it's the same as if you take painkillers and you take too much codeine, for instance, or something like that, and you get a euphoric, a high effect. There's a great book. I'll write this in the chat here. I think it's an Australian author. I think his name's Jaust or Jost. His name's Josh Sawyer, and he's written a book called Higher and Higher. It's an older book. It was something that even I remember my teacher recommending me in Chinese medicine school to kind of understand this the concept. Now, I'm pretty sure he was an addict himself, and not of cannabis, but of other drugs and things like that, I think. And he sort of talks about the concepts of that and Chinese medicine and what it does. So if you're kind of interested in that area, that's a good book to kind of get your hands on to read. So we have to be very aware of substances that give us that pleasurable effect, because in Chinese medicine, that's going to cost us. That costs us something. It's not without cost. That's the biggest thing to remember. I think Western medicine encompasses that idea, but they don't kind of articulate it like that. So if you, with alcohol, for instance, you could have, it's the rate at which you drink the alcohol as to how high you're getting, if at all, right? So if you have one glass of wine at a dinner and you slowly sip that wine, you might not, you'd probably be under the legal alcohol limit to drive and things like that. So it's really variable, right? Whereas if you have heroin or some kind of, a narcotic drug, I guess fentanyl's the new one, but, aside from nearly killing yourself, you would get this extreme, like there's no distance between taking that substance and getting high. You're going to have a high effect, right? Now, I've never used cannabis myself, so I can't sort of give you from an experience of how you go about taking it, what effect it has on your body. Thinking about that, whether you can get partially high or you always get high every time you have it, but there is definitely that effect that some drugs don't have. So some people use cannabis to relax the same way they would use alcohol. I would hazard a guess that the cannabis is going to give you more of that euphoric, that out of it sort of state than a bit of alcohol is. Now, I'm not saying alcohol is better than cannabis at all. Like, they both have different effects on the body in terms of detriment, the actual substance as well. The method of which you take the cannabis can also have detriment in your body as well. So the first thing is anything that causes you some sort of euphoria or even just altering your pain state, that is a type of euphoria. That's a type of joy in Chinese medicine. I'm not saying we should all live in pain and agony. That's the best way to live. No way. That's not great either. If it's recreational use and you're just sort of trying to move away from have an altered state, there's a cost that comes along with that. And so they think about that in terms of your kidney essence or your postnatal jing. So it's actually which is the same thing. There's jing and essence are the same is the same thing. So when you're born, you have prenatal essence and postnatal essence. The prenatal essence is the one that you get from your parents, and it's like an hourglass type of energy. When that runs out, you die, and you don't use very much of that to live your life, right? You use it's like the catalyst for the changes, right? Tiny little bit of this energy to use to keep going. Whenever you take a substance that gives you that euphoric effect, you're borrowing, or you're using more of that essence. And if you keep using up that postnatal essence, which is what your body creates, it will then dip into the prenatal essence. And the prenatal essence, I usually liken that to savings in the bank, right? So it's anything that causes you to sort of use that essence. Could be things like excessive lifestyle things, right? Like any kind of drugs, any kinds of alcohol abuse, or using it a lot. And then you also have the compounding effects of if you don't exercise well and you're overweight, your body's going to have to work harder to do all these kinds of things. And then that's taxing you. So this taxation idea, right? Literally the government is taxing you. Your own government, your own body's government is kind of coming in and taxing you. So like, imagine this, right? Imagine you were born and you had 100 coins, and I said to you, that represents your 100 years of life. And every year that you live, you only need 1 coin to live. And if you just use 1 coin per year, you'll have enough to live 100 healthy years. So off you go about your life, and you do this. I mean, we even see this kind of analogy mirrored in, many mythological sort of, stories and stuff like that, right? Prodigal son's a good example, right? You get your inheritance early, you waste it, right? And then, so you go out, and then you've got all this money, and you decide, oh, look, I'm gonna, live a bit of an exorbitant life, but you've got plenty of money in the bank, you've got plenty of coins there. So if you use 2 coins a year or 3 coins a year, it doesn't really bother you that much when you're 20, when you're 30, you don't notice the detriment. But when you get to 80, there's nothing left. You die too young, or you get illness, right? Because you're living on less health. That's kind of the analogy, okay? I'm just trying to simplify it really easily. So there's that kind of stuff. Now the method at which you take the cannabis in, right, like smoking, is definitely detrimental to you, and that's very drying for your lungs. We also see this issue, it's not so much cannabis, but since we're talking about this, like with vaping, it's too moistening your lungs. So your lungs are a metal element, and they dislike the inappropriate amount of moisture. Right? It has to be exactly right. So if there's any type of extra moisture, then you're going to have a cough. And if there's any type of dryness, like the lungs are said to vaporize the moisture as a fine mist. So it's like having a nice spray bottle that's working properly. Psh, 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 it sprays out the mist lovely and disperses everything, versus a mist, it's blocked or it's clogged or it's coming out as a jet. It's still the same water in the bottle, but it's just not usable. It's not as purposable. So that would be a big issue for like if you're smoking. If you're vaping, you're going to have too much moisture, and that's going to clog up your you're breathing too much and things like that. So cannabis itself, I mean, some people, they eat it or they do other things with it, I guess, but many times they're thinking about smoking it. So that's another issue. I mean, anything that you smoke is going to be somewhat, even if the substance of cannabis isn't as toxic to you as tobacco smoking, you're still flushing that area with dryness all the time with the actual smoke, right? Okay, so hopefully that's answered the question. I think we have to ask ourselves, if you want to be a healthy person, and I'm assuming you do because you're on this channel, on one hand, like you sometimes you're coming to this kind of thing because you're unwell and you have to do the things that you need to do certain things to manage your life. And ultimately you want to be able to live a life that's productive. And if that use of cannabis helps you be more productive, you're using it like a medicine, right? Now, I'm not trying to say, I want to give that caveat here. I'm not saying use it, where people say, oh, it's my medicine, and it's not, they're just abusing the concept of what the medicine is. Because there's many uses that it can have, right? Now, if it's someone, if it sort of has an occasional use, like people use mushrooms or something like that, and they kind of, and that's got less detriment than something else that they'd have an occasional use for. Like, for instance, alcohol. They use it to relax. They find their life is better with it or for it. If you're doing lots of things in your life that aren't great for you, you won't know which one is not helping you, which one is not good. We have this issue all the time with people, you kind of have illness and you don't know which thing is actually causing the illness. It's very, very hard when it could be food, it could be environmental stuff, it could, there could be lots of things. So the addiction aspect of it is not great, right? That's not a good thing in Chinese medicine or any medicine, for something else to control you, for something else to have. So if that's happened, now, if you've got some kind of cancer and smoking cannabis or something helps you have a better appetite, so therefore you can and less pain, and then you don't need other pain medicines. Like, what I'm getting at is there's many, many reasons why people use it. So hopefully that's helped you. I'm sure other practitioners who have more experience in this area might have a different answer to give you, and possibly a better one. So I'm sorry if that's not such a great answer for you. All right, we've got another question about vegan diet. Let me just add this question in. Thank you so much for your question, Grey Probably said that completely wrong. Just chalk that down to my Australian accent. I try to answer. Oh, Pontes. I'll say your surname. Yep, I'm just still trying to read your name. I like to do things well some of the time. Okay, so how to treat kidney both yin and yang deficiency in a vegan diet? Okay. Good question. I'm assuming you've seen some of my videos on. I don't hate vegans, but close enough. Okay, great. I'm sure you've had that issue before. With people not. I'd like to say your name. Well, it's a lovely name. I'm sure you've seen some of my videos on the vegan diet in Chinese medicine. So there's a few things that we can do to lessen the effect. So one is reduce all the raw stuff that you're having. So your body likes warm, cooked and moist. It dislikes cold, dry and raw. I'm not sure where you're up to in sort of watching videos from my channel or anything like that. So I think I do have some videos about, I definitely have a video about why I eat mostly cooked foods. And it's not going to replace meat, but basically meat in itself is already warm, okay? Anything from an animal's already warm, and especially because you're not having eggs, they're the next closest thing to meat in terms of they just naturally have a thermal nature of being warm. So therefore, everything else in the plant kingdom has a cooling to neutral effect. Some things are warm, but there's not that many. There's not that many things that are warm. So then because our body likes that warm, where are we going to get that warmth from? And when we get deficient, it's a lack of warmth. Okay. So in TCM, they're going to say yin deficiency or yang deficiency. In classical Chinese medicine, we just tend to think about yang deficiency. Not so much. We do have yin deficiency, but we just don't see it as the perpetrator of the problem. We think of it as probably the yang is the main cause of the problem. The yang declining, right? So either way, if we think about, like, if in TCM if they're saying yin deficiency, they're still thinking about spleen qi, which is a type of yang. Okay, so qi and yang are together. In TCM, they kind of group them together, and that's when they say qi, when they say spleen qi, they mean the function, the spleen's ability to digest, to transform and transport, which is the core of your digestive processes. So one would be to just limit or reduce or hardly ever have any raw. So never have juices and any kinds of fruits and things like that. Try to cook them as best as you can. When you go into winter, if you're in the US now, you're going into winter, you want to try to have mostly cooked or all cooked. And then in summer, you can have sort of more raw. Now, you could do little experiments with this sort of thing and start to introduce those things. Now, there's also foods that can introduce more warmth into the diet. And one of those foods that I recommend a lot for people is ginger. I'm going to write that in the chat. So ginger. Now, what's great about ginger is it's easy to get. It's a Chinese herb. The same herb is the same substance that you buy at the food shop, at the supermarket. The fresh ginger is the same herb that we use in Chinese medicine. The same species, it's the same. And what does ginger do? It warms the stomach itself. So it sort of like helps prepare that stomach for the coldness that might be coming in from the plant foods. So if I had to be vegan, I don't know, I might just die now with all the life changes I've had in my life. But I was a vegetarian for a long time. I was never a vegan, but I was a vegetarian for 9 years. These are the things that I do. So you have ginger. Include that in your diet as much as you can. Okay. The second one is no beans. Ever. If you're yang deficient, right? Now that is in itself is a problem for vegans, because then you're like, what else am I going to eat? Because there ain't much joy left in life, right? I'm not saying there isn't any joy, but there's not much left in the palette of foods to eat, especially substantial foods, because a lot of vegans and vegetarians eat beans for protein. Now, what do beans do? Beans have a flushing, detoxifying effect. So they're literally pushing everything out of you. They're flushing things out. So they're flushing nutrients out. They're making your bowels more looser than they probably should be in general. So I would get rid of the beans and not have the beans. So, be very, very aware of things like raw. I mean, we already said no raw, but, so but just things like kale is, some of these things are really, really toxic when they're in large amounts of your diet, which is just naturally what's going to happen when you're a vegan. Now, the other things you can try to do is you can cook with herbs. This is what I used to do when I was a vegetarian. Now, I don't know if it was that helpful or not, because no one how do you really know? You can buy these herb packs, right? So there's a herb pack that you can buy called Su Wu. I'm going to write this in the tongue. Or Su. So I'm just writing this in the chat, right? So Su Tang is a blood tonic kind of herbs, 4 herbs, right? So these are herbs that you can kind of cook with. Now, what you do with this is it's going to be a little packet like this with about, like you can see the herbs on my shelf here, like a little handful, if that, of each herb. And you make your soup that you would normally make, right? So you might have, this is what I used to do all the time, okay? I'll buy a soup pack of, I don't know if they have that in the US, but they used to sell that in Australia, like a soup pack of vegetables. So you'd have a turnip, parsnip, a celery stick, half an onion or an onion, this kind of thing, the root vegetables. So you put all that into, and you're basically using that to make a stock. And then you chuck those herbs in there. Now, I'm just going to grab something off this shelf so I can show you roughly something. All the ones we'd use aren't actually here, but here's an example of ginger. I don't know if I should open this because it's going to be really strongly smelling, but some of the herbs you'll get in those soup packs look sort of like this. So they're like a little sticky sort of, they're very hard. This is dried ginger, right? Now, ultimately in the soup, you're not going to eat this. So what I used to do is just chuck all the herbs into the stock and then make my soup and then just eat around the sticks that were there, right? Like as in if the stick gets in your mouth, you just kind of spit it out. Just don't swallow it down. But you can buy little muslin type of bags. They're just little, like almost like a tea bag, a cloth bag that you make. And then you put all the herbs in there and, you're sort of dipping that. So you're boiling that up. So you boil the stock for a couple of hours if you can. And then you use whatever vegetable you're going to use to make the soup, right? So it might be pumpkin. In Australia, we love pumpkin soup. I know the US does not have pumpkin as a soup or you guys have it as a sweet vegetable. So anyway, we have it as a savoury one in Australia. So I used to make butternut pumpkin soup like that. Now, because all those herbs are in there, especially if you use the Su Tang, it's got a herb called Shu Di or Shang Di sometimes in there, which is very black. So your soup's going to look dark. It's not going to look bright yellow pumpkin soup. And those things can help nourish, right? They're nourishing blood, they're nourishing qi, which is kind of that's the root of before you get to yin and yang. They are nourishing yin and yang, right? They're nourishing that deficiency. So that in itself is treating the kidney, right? When you say treating the kidney, in TCM, they refer to that, the same thing we're referring in classical Chinese medicine as like, just general deficiency. So you're supporting the core, the powerhouse of the body. You're supporting the functional things. So mostly warm, cooked and moist. Stay away from cold, dry and raw. Don't have any beans because they have that flushing kind of effect. If you're willing to change in any way, now I know I'm saying that, I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing at you. The things that you would add first, or that if you can't stomach it, like I get that sometimes you're just like, I can't stomach this stuff, it's just too bad. Gelatin, you could add the gelatin in. These are meat-based, animal-based things that you'd be changing, right? But you'd be adding those things in. That's a food that will nourish you, highly, highly nourishing blood. Bone broth, which you could buy if you can't make it. Get a butcher to make it for you, or someone who's like a organic person to make it. Because that's similar to the gelatin. It's going to give you that collagen and that sort of stuff, and you could start adding that. And this is what I've done with some of my patients who are vegan, who are like, they're really desperate to get better, and they're just like, they don't really want to eat a lot of meat, or any meat, but they're willing to sort of try it. And then the other one would be eggs. So if you're a vegan that also ate eggs, then that would highly benefit. You'd notice a massive difference just from adding the eggs in. Yep. But aside from that, like the foods that are warm in Chinese medicine that are plants tend to circle around root vegetables, which are things growing underground. They support the spleen and stomach more. Oh, you're not vegan all the time. Okay, perfect. Well, the other times you can eat more of these things, right? But yeah, you might notice during that period of the year where you're a vegan, sometimes that you notice the effects of not having the meat, right? Because it's probably a good experiment to be able to do, like to notice, that it's, you can apply the tips for carnivore. That's weird. One half of the year you're carnivore, the other half you're vegan. So okay, so then sorry, what was I thinking? What was I saying before? Yeah, so warm, cooked and moist. Stay away from the cold, dry and raw. You could include these kinds of soup. So all these things I gave you, these food things. Where you go to get those is you just go to your local Chinatown, your local Chinese supermarkets, Oriental grocery stores. In most countries, they have those things there. And then you go into like the aisle and you'll see these weird packets of the foods. And sometimes they're just all written with Chinese characters and they have like a little English sort of sticker on it. And it'll probably have that there. I used to enjoy the process of going there and seeking out random stuff when I was studying Chinese medicine, because that's what you do. So I kind of, understand all that, but it's a bit of a journey to go into that land of the Chinese Oriental grocery store. So the herbs that are kind of a part of those, if you just want sort of one herb, if you that you can cook with, dang gui is a good one. That's more for blood. So if you're more on the side of blood deficient, you'd probably have more dryness in your body, more dry skin, hair falling out easily maybe, and if you're for females, more issues with menstrual cycles and stuff like that. If it's more sort of not blood deficiency, but just you're saying kidney deficiency, like yang deficiency or yin deficiency kind of things, then there can be lots of symptoms with those kinds of things. But either way, if you were yang deficient and you had dang gui, it's not going to make you worse. That's, it's not going to hurt you. But that's a common herb, just a one herb you can cook with. I'm writing these in the chat for you. So huang qi is another one. This is sort of for yang and qi. It's more for qi, the huang qi. And that's astragalus. Just writing these in there. I'll press enter in a minute and you'll be able to see them there. The other herb that's used a lot is types of renshen. Now, renshen's super expensive. It's a ginseng or dangshen or taizashen. So I'll write it in this order. I'm just writing this down because the Chinese words are a bit weird, a bit hard to get my accent and I don't pronounce Chinese very correctly. So dang gui is a blood tonic herb. I'm just reading what I've written there. Huang qi is astragalus. Now, what's good about huang qi is it's very sweet. I might have some huang qi here somewhere. This is not huang qi. I think this is jiegang, but this is, it is. But huang qi kind of looks a little bit like this kind of a look. It also can look like these weird popsicle sticks, depends on how they cut the huang chi. But it's quite sweet. Now, Tides Shen, Ren Shen, and Dung Shen, they're all the same family of herbs in terms of they're all tonics. Now, Ren Shen's super expensive. So for 100 grams, sorry, not 100. Yeah, is it? Well, it's about how much would fill up this jar. So I think it must be about 450 grams. The Ren Shen last time I bought it was about $400. It's expensive. It's $200. So anyway, it's quite a lot more. This would be like, $80 for the same thing that the Ren Shen's, is. Now, Tides Shen sort of looks like this. I'll put this up here so you can kind of see. The weird little sort of, I don't know, they're not worms. It's definitely a vegetable. It's definitely a plant. And so these kinds of things are nourishing qi, but they're also helping you generate fluids in your body. That's what Ren Shen, the ginseng sort of family does. So if you could make a tea out of these things. You could, and you could use that tea you could use those herbs several times to make a tea, as long as it's not going moldy or something like that. So you can grind the herbs up and have and use the powder. You can make a tea. You can put them into your soup. So if you're going to make a soup, you could use the Dung Shen, and that's actually what is already in the Sejunzatang formula that I gave you, that you can use as a soup kind of herb. Well, you're making a soup out of the herbs. All right. So yeah, if you've got mucus and asthma, you might want to there's nothing there that I've said that would make the mucus or asthma worse or anything. Yeah. So, you want to strengthen the lungs, basically, if that's the case. So the more you strengthen the spleen, because in Chinese medicine you have wood, fire, earth, metal. So earth generates metal. So that's your spleen and stomach. Your digestive system generates metal, which is your lungs. And that relates to the asthma. So that if you've got lots of phlegm and damp, like you're coughing up phlegm, you've got mucus, it means the earth element isn't working as well. And so then it's not able to generate, it's not generating metal. Metal's not as strong because of that. So you want to, if the more you focus on your digestion, the better it's going to help the asthma situation. Yep. Cool. All right. I hope I haven't missed any other questions here. Do other people have a question? So we're just doing Q&A. I started off talking about seasonal stuff in this stream because but if people have a question, we're answering that. Someone says how to treat the liver in a vegan diet. So maybe you can elaborate a bit more about what you mean by the liver. So liver in Chinese medicine can have a few different no worries. Thanks. Glad you're Guahalame. I'm still not sure how to say your name. I'm going to talk about this next question. So if Feelers is still here, you can maybe pop some additional information there if you want. So you're asking how to treat the liver in a vegan diet. Like if there's liver blood deficiency, if there's liver qi stagnation, if there's a particular pattern of disharmony there, or just, in general, I'll just start talking about what the liver in Chinese medicine kind of does. So it actually has two main functions. One is it's helping to produce blood. When you study Chinese medicine, they call it storing blood, which is through your sleep. So when you're sleeping, your liver is literally just filtering the blood. And that definitely can suffer when you're a vegan because you are not eating. I mean, don't want to be gross if you're a vegan. You don't want to hear that, but you're not eating blood. You're not eating the warm foods as much. So the the liver can sort of, the blood tonic part can suffer from that. So let's say a person isn't a vegan and they get blood deficient. The two things a practitioner will be, let's say they're a new patient, I don't know if they're a vegan. The two things I'm going to be thinking about as soon as I realize they might be blood deficient is how's your sleep and your digestion, because those two things are how you make blood. There's not really any, I mean, your breathing does affect that, but sleep is the actual other big one. So if your digestion isn't great or you're not able to eat meat, that's going to lead eventually to liver blood deficiency. And if your sleep is poor, not great, that will escalate things. That will make it worse. So your sleep. So if you're saying you're a vegan and we're not going to change that, well, we'd want to work on the sleep as much as possible. You'd want to do everything you can to help your body have a better chance of sleeping well, because it's got it. That's its other option. That's its backup there, right? So what a perfect sleep is, you put your head on the pillow and you wake up and it's the morning and you have no recollection of what's happened in the night. Now, not everyone has that sleep. Even I don't have that kind of sleep every night. But you want to have more nights that are like towards that than less towards that. So there are some things we can just try to do. Firstly, like they call this sleep hygiene, to try to prepare yourself for sleep and try to do things better. One of the things that's going to help you is having a short, or maybe let's say at least half an hour walk in the evening as the sun's going down, right? The certain rays of the sun are going to get into your eyes. No sunglasses on. You don't stare at the sun or anything, but you just, one of the good practices that you can do when you're walking in the evening is actually distance looking. So looking as far as you can see, because a lot of the stuff we're doing now is very short-sighted, like things like I'm looking at a computer screen now, everything's close to me, this kind of thing. I'm not sort of gazing into the distance. So that is a good idea. And what that will do is that helps melatonin to be produced. And then when you get home from that walk, it'll be starting to come darker. So you want to do that walk as just before the sun's going down, when the light changes to a grayish kind of a light. If that's possible. Okay, if it's not possible, and sometimes this is why people have bad sleep, because they do shift work and they're always working at that time and they can never do those things. You do not want what I've got in this room, right? Like a massive bright light facing at me. Now, I do want that now. The room I'm in now has got no windows. So I don't know if it's day or night in here sometimes, because, I mean, I do. So I'm not an idiot. But I could if I stayed in here all the time and I never left. There's no, it's almost completely soundproof. So yeah, you wouldn't know what's going on. If it's evening, you don't want lots of bright lights on you. You want to reduce that light, because that triggers your body to think, oh, it's daytime, I'm going to not produce melatonin. So you want to produce melatonin, which helps you kind of feel sleepy. Okay, some other things you can try to make you feel sleepy in the night is also regulating with your digestion. So the most productive kind of diet you can have is a low carb kind of diet during the day, and not heavy carbs, like heaps of carbs, but more carbohydrates in the evening. If you're not overweight, that'll help you fall asleep. So I'm not saying have a lot, because you don't want that blood sugar to go up. If you're on a ketogenic diet, don't do this, right? You're doing your body's doing something else. So don't do that. But that comfort of those carbs can sometimes help people to. Now, what I mean by those kind of carbs is like, if we'll stick on the vegan and vegetarian sort of thing. You might have sweet potato, you might have pumpkin, you might have turnip, parsnip. These sort of root vegetables are really comforting to the spleen and stomach kind of things. Yep. Oh, if you're underweight, so you can chew up those carbs, no worries. You could probably have as many as you want. You want to have those things. So I'll just put that there. We call them root. In different countries, they have different words for these things, right? turnip, parsnip, sweet. What else is there? Carrots can be part of this. These kinds of foods are tonifying to the spleen and stomach. Now, it's the color of these things is that orangey yellow kind of color. And you could certainly do the things we talked about just before, right? You could make a soup with those vegetables, and add those herbs into it. Add the huang qi, add the renshan, if you want to tonify blood, particularly, people who are blood deficient typically will have these kinds of symptoms. They could easily get lightheaded. They'll have dry skin. And then eventually their skin won't be good. Like their skin will be easy breaking out with acne or like redness or dryness. Like it's just, easy getting dry things here or there. Dry, like skin conditions can happen when you've got blood deficiency. If you don't have the skin condition, it doesn't mean you don't have blood deficiency. This is like how it kind of progresses. If you're a female, menstrual cycle issues can happen, like not having regular periods, having very heavy periods, having all that sort of stuff. For some people, that dryness from blood deficiency extends into their bowels, where they get very pebbly, dry kind of bowels happening, right? So the dandruff that you've mentioned could be that there's sometimes what happens is you get very dry skin and then it's irritated and then it's producing that dandruff because your skin's dry. Okay, so what are we talking about? How to treat the liver in the vegan diet. So that's the blood deficiency aspect and kind of helping to nourish blood. So you want to do things that can improve your sleep. People tend to sleep better in a cooler environment than a hotter environment. So whatever you can do to do that, right? Like, so it's hard if you're in Australia right now. It's been very, very hot in some places where I live. It's getting a bit less hot, which is good, but it's been uncomfortably hot, right? And you can't sleep that well. So that's important. The light in the evening. So going back to that, you go for your walk and you come back, just don't put bright lights on. Have dimmer lights. Have low light, right? Try not to look at your phone in the evening. Try not to get yourself riled up with ideas and things like that. Like that's just a trigger for some people they just can't wind down after they've already gone there. Those kinds of things. And then if that doesn't help and you've tried those things, like go and see your acupuncturist or your Chinese herbalist. There are Chinese herbs that can be used to help with sleep, and there's various things that we can do to do that. Like we kind of sometimes use yang tonic herbs that are going to anchor the yang. Now, the good news is for most people, most Chinese herbs are not containing animal products. There are some, like we use them, but there's not many. There's not many. What do you call it? There's not many animal products in Chinese herbs that have to be used, and your practitioner should be able to tell you that. So you're saying what herbs would I recommend for sleep? There's not really like one herb. It's not like with Western medicine where they say, chamomile or valerian. They're Western herbs that are used to kind of calm you. In Chinese medicine, it's going to be a formula, and the formula that you need will be vastly different depending on what's your pattern of disharmony is and your pulse diagnosis, even within that pattern. So if you had blood deficiency, there's going to be 3 or 4 formulas that we would use. One is you won't be able to get those those herbs, and it's sort of, that's where it can become dangerous. If you're using the wrong thing for you, you're going to overload your liver and kidneys with digesting things that you may not need, and that's not great. So at that point you kind of need to see a practitioner. It's not so much like, just drink this herb as a tea. It's like an actual proper formula that's going to look at being able to treat the cause of the problem. Like a good example is in Chinese medicine, one of the herbs that's used, like mentioned a lot for sleep. And by mentioning, I mean, it's not actually clinically used that much for sleep, is a formula or a herb called Swanzauran, right? And like it's a very rare condition for actually to see a proper patient like that kind of sleep. But it's almost been misused in Chinese medicine. When I was doing TCM herbs before the herb system I use now, we used to be told things like, oh, so you give the patient the formula that they need, and then we kind of add these calming, the Shen herbs in there to help them with their sleep. Now, does that help? Yes, I'm sure it does help, because some of those patients that I had in the past were helped. But it's not as direct as what I'm doing now in terms of formulas that help sleep more through a much more specific path is what I'm saying. Yeah. So I don't want to lead people off the garden path. Like, I've only ever needed that Swanzauran for one person in my clinic practice of, many, many years. I'm going to put this back because it's annoying me that there's that hole behind us. I can see it in the background. Okay, yeah, so we've got another question, bacon. That's what threw me off, because I saw that and then I started getting bloody hungry for bacon, because people probably know I'm doing a carnivore diet. And I love bacon. All right. Let me add this question in here. So, Guahame Pontes, I'm just going to call you that. I'm going to make that how I'm going to say your name. Says, Guahame, Guahame, maybe. Guahame. I have another question. What's bacon good for? I used to have a lot of lethargy, eating bread, etc. in the morning, and now I'm eating bacon, eggs, and black beans in the morning, and I feel amazing. Amazing. Awesome. That's good. I'm glad you feel amazing. And that is an awesome breakfast to have. Maybe in Chinese medicine, not the beans, but I'll explain how that may be working for you together. One thing we have to remember when you change your diet is sometimes it's not all of what you are eating, but it's what you're not eating that's actually helping you. What you like, as in the amazing feeling that you feel. I doubt that it's the bacon is actually making you feel amazing, but the bacon is satisfying you so that you don't have to eat other foods. Okay. You could probably feel just as amazing with the eggs, except the bacon has a lot of fat in it. And now apart from the beans, it's like a very ketogenic type of a breakfast, right? So you're having low carbs, or if you didn't have the beans, you'd have no carbs. And what this will do is it's just going to keep your blood sugar like steady, and you're not going to have a spike up and a spike down. Like, when you have the spike up, you feel, good. You feel that high, but then you have the low. And Gilirame. He's saying his name is, I believe it's pronounced like Gilirame. Yeah, Gilirame. Okay, got it. Gilirame. That makes so much sense. I don't know why. I can pronounce Chinese names. But yeah, Gilirame. That sounds beautiful. Anyway, one day on YouTube they'll have some kind of audio, and you can make a little audio message in there. Gilirame. Oh yeah, you've got it right. Okay, good. Thank you for correcting that. So, what's bacon good for? So, like, it's good for the taste. I don't know if bacon is actually good for you, apart from the fat, okay? As in, if you're not having carbs, you need lots of fat on a ketogenic kind of diet, and that fat satiates you, and your brain needs fats. Does it need bacon fat? I don't know if you could get the same effect by beef fat or other animal fat. Now, because I'm doing this carnivore diet, I've started getting involved in these carnivore kind of groups and people and whatnot. So I can give you a thing about. I can give you some knowledge from that aspect. Like in Chinese medicine, the pork animal, the pig, is used a lot more in foods, and it's kind of seen as a really strong tonic for the lungs. And actually, even though you think, well, but pork is so fatty, and not so much bacon. I don't know if it's exactly bacon, because bacon is processed. So in the carnivore community, a lot of people find they come to carnivore firstly because they want to heal their body. They've got something wrong with them. For not everyone, but for the majority of people, that leads them there. So people either are led there because they've got an autoimmune condition, they've got something seriously wrong that they need to help them. They're trying to fix. They're trying to, it's almost like a process of elimination to see, will this help me, right? And those kinds of people tend to not feel good having bacon. They can't usually have it. They have to have certain quality of bacon. I had a really interesting experience myself the other day. So, because I'm doing my program called 75 Hard, I'm pretty strict with what I've set the parameters of what my diet is going to be, and I don't deviate from that. So when I did carnivore in the past, I allowed myself to have different herbs and spices on the foods if I wanted it, right? So I would have, sprinkle the steak with this or that. Not sugar, but just pepper and I don't know, cayenne, a bit of spicy or different sort of things like that. This time I've done none of that. So not only salt, and at the start I had some pepper, but now I'm not even having the pepper. So it's just basically salt and meat. But I do have bacon, right? So I will eat, and I've lost 7.5 kilos now in what's today, the 13th of February, so 44 days, right? And I'll have 2 kilos of bacon a week. So I feel like I'm quite well versed to answer your question about bacon. It's so making me hungry thinking about it. So I'm going through all this bacon, right? And particularly I use it as a way to, if I'm hungry and or I just want a bit of a slightly different flavour. Let's put it like that, not just the meat. And so I went to the shops the other night, and I'm always looking for bacon on special. So I saw this bacon on special, and it was the streaky bacon, right? Now, often they call it streaky bacon, and it's because I like the fat. I put it in the air fryer, I make it really crispy, and have it as a little crispy, crunchy thing. And this bacon that I bought, I was like, I don't want, sometimes they put maple syrup on it and stuff like that, right? And I was just like, okay, I was sure that this was just bacon, because there was 2 packets on special of this good bacon. It's a good quality, it's a good producer of bacon in Australia, as in a well-known brand. Normally I just buy the cheapest one that's there, right? And I get it home and I cook it up, and I was like, this tastes a bit different. And so I've been on this diet for this was 2 days ago. And all the vegans are going to tune out of the channel now that it's like bacon. Yeah, other people can ask their questions. I saw someone put a question and retract the question, but you can ask another question. That's totally fine. I'm happy to answer your questions. And then the next day I woke up. So I didn't have much of it. I just must have had about 6 pieces of this streaky bacon. And I did not feel good. I felt bad. I felt I was like, what's wrong with me? I felt like I wasn't going to be able to continue with my 75 hard. I had crampy pain in my stomach. Actually, when I first woke up, I felt sick. I had to go and teach a class, and I thought, am I going to vomit? I don't feel well. Have I eaten something wrong? And especially when you're doing carnivore, you just feel so good that you get used to always feeling good. Now, I don't wake up feeling sick that often. Like, something has to be wrong for that to happen. And I was like, what have I done? Anyway, then I was thinking, what did I eat? Like, what did I have? And then the next day I came good, right? So I just continued on my day and pushed through, and then by the end of the day I felt good. So it must have been something I'd eat. Anyway, I looked at this bloody fucking bacon packet, and it has sugar in it, and that's what tasted weird to me. And I was like, this tastes a bit sweety, sort of, and then I looked on the back, and it doesn't have much, but it had some sugar in it. Like, it's like they're putting sugar in this, and it's not even written on the packet, anything like that on the front. Like, it just, and the same brand had two. One was like maple bacon, and the other one was just normal bacon. I was like, okay, this is just normal bacon. And yeah, so one of the issues with bacon is that it's hard to find good quality bacon that doesn't have, like, because of its smokiness, smoked out, and what they do to it, there can be, and this is what I find in people in the carnivore community. People, they tend to say, just avoid bacon because, like, unless it's grass-fed, pure whatever, like, from a special farm and you've done it yourself or whatever it is, right? You can't just buy bacon out of the supermarket. So you do have to be careful that they seem to add a lot of additives into it. So you're just going to have to check the back of the packet. And this, like, the writing's so tiny, and I was like, it just had nothing. It didn't insinuate that on the front, especially having two packs the same. Anyway, I was angry with the company when I realized that, because I was like, was that what was making me feel sick? Because I just had not even had that so it might not have been the sugar in the bacon. It might have been, whatever else they've put in there to smoke it, to make it do what they've done to it. Anyway, so this is a great breakfast to have, right? Bacon is a yin tonic, not bacon, but bacon included, but yeah, pork is a yin tonic, and a yang tonic meat. So what that means is it generates fluids. That's the idea of pork. And in Chinese medicine, pork is used a lot in cooking, in recommendations for foods. They don't seem to have any reservation about using pork like that. Like, that's a very big no-no in many other cultures. Many other East Asian cultures don't like using pork. So yeah. Now, I'm not sure about this question, Feelers. You've got, do smoked foods have any benefit? I don't know. I'd have to look into that more to give you a proper answer. I think one of the benefits is the taste. Like, taste is making something tasty that isn't detrimental to you. I don't think it's detrimental, but is it beneficial to you? Now, what smoking does is it is a type of a drying cooking method. So if we go back to what's healthy for us, warm, cooked and moist, that doesn't mean we can never have any dry, but it's if you have a lot. Like, so if that's all you have, and this is, again, I mean, who's having, maybe someone is having only smoked foods, only dry foods, it's there's no way that can be healthy for you. So I'm going to talk about this next question. We've got a question about fertility, cycle sort of stuff. This will be interesting. Yeah. No more questions about bacon because I'm going to get too hungry. I haven't eaten. That's the other good thing about being, when you eat that kind of a diet, going back to the bacon and the eggs in the morning, and used to have a lot of lethargy, you will have so much more stamina because you're just not hungry, and then you'll end up not needing to eat. Like, if you ate like that every meal, you just wouldn't eat as much through the day, and then you'll be hungry less often. You can last longer on that kind of a food, on that kind of a diet. Awesome. All right. Elise says, how to help a 45-year-old woman get pregnant with irregular periods. Right. This is a good question. So in Chinese medicine, everything goes by nature. Okay. Like, as in, it's very hard to do something that is going to go against what nature is naturally going to do. Can it do that? Yes, it can, but it's not its place to shine. So Western medicine can do things miraculously much more that Chinese medicine can't do, right? And we would say that it's not really the most optimal, certainly we know it's not the optimal time to be pregnant at that time. And this is a hard thing to it's a hard conversation to have, and it's a hard thing to come towards to explain, but like that's where it sits. Now, does that mean that you can't get pregnant? No, you can, but there's definitely going to be much more detriment on your body than if it was 10 years earlier. So I'll give you some things you can try to optimize things or to help, but at the same time, it's like, okay, the essence that you give to the baby in Chinese medicine, that's based on the quality of what you've got. So yeah, it's either going to take a lot of your nutrients if you don't have those nutrients to give, right? So, it's hard to go against what nature is supposed to be doing. I think it's a bit cruel and a bit horrible what society has done to us. Like, I'm of a similar age, and like, I think growing up around that age, like when I was 20 and 30, I had no desire whatsoever to ever have a kid. Like, that was just like something I never wanted to have, and I don't really want to have a kid now. But if I was in the mindset I am now, back then I probably would have thought about having a kid. And I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and now watching my two brothers have kids, and then seeing my parents like have the joy of the grandkids and all that sort of stuff, like, I that should have been me. In terms of, I should have been the one to pop the seal in a way, because you're the oldest, and then others would kind of follow suit. But it's interesting that society just pushes you towards, career. I think that's changing now. I can see that momentum sort of changing. So, like, it's common is what I'm saying. I'm trying to answer this somewhat diplomatically. I'm not very good at that. To sort of wake up at 40 and think, oh, now I want to have a kid. Now, if your cycle's regular, that's a really good thing. Okay, so it's harder definitely to get your cycle going if it's not going. So that's a good thing. So what is a menstrual cycle? It's a surplus of your body's reserve that's there. So having a regular cycle means that there's some kind of surplus there. If that stops, that means your body's so depleted that it doesn't have any reserve to give, right? It's like, okay, oh, hold up, we don't want to get any pregnant. Let's stop that, right? So that's a good sign. There's a kind of a formula that a lot of practitioners will get to or use for people to support fertility around this age. Now, it supports the women's physiology. You need to do this in cahoots with a practitioner. I doubt you could get this formula by yourself, and I'm not suggesting that you do. So be aware of self. I'm not in any way encouraging people to self-prescribe Chinese herbs. Okay, I just want to make that really clear, because you may not need this formula, or you may need a transition to get to this formula. But the formula is called Wenjing Tang. Now, that formula is like supporting female physiology. What that means is it supports what naturally should be happening around this time. And it's a kind of a formula that you might take for several years, not at this age, but like it might, if you didn't have a cycle, you might need to take it for a couple of years in order to, make things generate things to the point where you could get your cycle going properly, or regulate your cycle. Like, it can be used for women that are much younger, who don't have a regular cycle. Now, that's not the only formula we would use, or the only herbs. Like, it's definitely going to be based on your pulse diagnosis. But it's basically nourishing blood. That formula, what it does, it nourishes blood, but it also moves stagnation and stuckness. So what happens is, every time you have a period, your body's getting a bit more stagnation building up, it's getting a bit more depleted. So as much meat as you can kind of eat in your diet is good. Bone broth, chicken stock, these kinds of things, you need that nourishment, that blood nourishment. Sleep is really important. So the more you can have good sleep, those things are going to support blood, nourish blood. If you were to think about between herbs and acupuncture, I would go down the herbs road and see a person who's a classical herbalist who can give you something like a Wenjing tongue formula and support you in that way, with high quality herbs, not these little pills, these are what I've got on my desk here are the only kind of pills that I would use in my clinic, and they're made with honey, and you can see me sort of squashing it down here. The herbs are ground into a powder and then mixed with the honey. This is for my back pain. If I get back pain, I hardly get it now that I'm doing my carnivore diet, and my exercise. But sometimes I get a sore back from exercising too much. It's a catch-22, isn't it? Anyway, so be careful about the quality of the herbs that you use, and that's what happens when you go and buy herbs over the counter. You're going to buy little pills, like. So this formula, you're best off taking it in granules. It really tastes strongly. Like, it's one of the only formulas I give to people that they almost send it back because of the taste. There's one herb in it that's quite strong. So after the stream, you can send me an email if you want to with where you live, and I'll see if there's any practitioners in my system that could that are nearby you. I've put my clinic's email there for you, okay? So what can you do for yourself? So warm, cooked and moist foods, plenty of like quality rest, in terms of, like, you don't want to sleep around. maybe you do if you're trying to get pregnant. You want to have plenty of downtime, but activity, right? You want those two things to be in cahoots with each other. The thing that the aspect where acupuncture can help you more than herbs is in stress. So what happens at this point is people start stressing out about the whole scenario. Now, you don't have to put any more details about what's going on for you, but sometimes people go down the road with IVF and it's expensive and it's taxing their relationship, or they're like, oh, we've got to have sex right now, and it's all these, it's a very taxing kind of scenario. You're like, it's taking the joy out of it sometimes in that way. And many women find acupuncture to be highly relaxing to them, and that in itself, right? Now, we don't know, no one knows the reason why exactly, otherwise we would just replicate this mechanism in real life. But, often people who stop trying then get pregnant. Now, that's not helpful whatsoever to hear that, because then you're like, I don't want to stop trying because I want to keep trying. Like, I had a patient once that I saw. I've had many, many patients with fertility stuff, but she had tried with herbs and acupuncture for almost, I would say, at least a year, if not more, right? So she was a lady that would come in regularly. She was on herbs for a year. Now, this was before I did the system of herbs that I do now. And she was trying IVF. Now, I can't remember what was going on with her scenario, but she was really, really, really invested in that whole process for a long period of time. And it came to the point where she had just said, look, I can't do this anymore, right? And this happens a lot. I've seen this a lot with people where they're just like, I can't do this anymore. The cost, the emotional toll, like especially going through IVF, like you're sticking yourself with these drugs, you're on these highs, you're these lows. IVF has gotten, and if people aren't familiar with that, in vitro fertilization, don't know why I couldn't even say that. In vitro fertilization. Yep. So, like artificial kinds of things. Sometimes it would be collecting eggs, and sometimes it would be implanting eggs or freezing eggs and all these sorts of things, right? It's very taxing on you. So she stopped doing that. And I didn't hear from her for ages. And I'd moved clinics to a different place, and I actually had a retail shop at the same time as that. And I was in my retail shop one day, and she came into the shop, and I recognized her, and I said, like, I'm not that great at recognizing patients in terms of I will never, which is probably a good thing, like remember what's going on with you or whatever. And she said, oh, you Marie, like, do you remember seeing me for Chinese medicine and all this? And I said, yeah, I remember you. And she goes, oh, well, a year after I saw you, like, I got pregnant naturally, and now I've got twins or triplets or something, like 3 kids. It was either 2 or 3, like naturally, without the IVF. Something like, I'm sure it was triplets. Like, I remember thinking, shit, that's a lot of kids. And she was, I can't remember exactly how old she was, but she was pushing on to she was over 40. Would have been at that time. But anyway, it was obviously a struggle to get pregnant naturally because otherwise they wouldn't have taken her on as a case with all the stuff that she'd done. And, like, now that's not, every case doesn't end up like that. And I was like, oh, it would have been nice for you to tell me that before, because, you want to know, like, these things. So sometimes the stuff that you do in the treatment along the way is helping people in some way, right? But it's not producing a baby right there and then. So the stuff that you're doing to help your fertility actually is helping you. So whether it results in a baby or not, in a pregnancy or not, you want it to still be stuff that's going to help you no matter what. And you're doing it because it's going to help you. And that kind of takes a lot of the pressure out of it. It's like, oh, I did all, like if someone said you do 10 handstands a day and that increases your chance of getting pregnant, and there was some study on that, you'd probably do it, right? And then a year later you don't get pregnant and you find out, fuck, I did all those handstands for nothing. Like, that was a waste of my time and my life. So the stuff that Chinese medicine would be asking you to do is not like that. It's going to help you no matter what. So you want to eat regular meals, right? You want to be full and empty, not grazing all day long. You want to eat as much high protein as you can. Like, that is really good. Bone broth, chicken stock. If you're in the US and you're coming into winter, you certainly want a lot more of that warm foods. Cinnamon, ginger, you can put that in your food, sort of cooking with that. That's going to be helpful for you. And hopefully somewhat delicious. What else can you do? If you can't afford to have acupuncture, which is fine, that's expensive and everything, and you do have the stress aspect of it, find something else that you can do that works for you just as a stress relieving thing. Now, that's not all that acupuncture will do if you go and have a session of it. It's not all that it does, but it does have that big component in there. And I think that's part of it. Like, sometimes you're caught up in this journey of all this stuff, and that, these things are for you, but it's like also not for you, right? So what's something that benefits you that you can do once a week or even every day, where you're getting that stress relief benefit from it, right? Even just going for a walk, like if you're not doing that already, doing some kind of exercise. The other side of it might be too much exercise. I had a patient once that was like really invested in CrossFit. Like, she used to do it all the time. It's like that F45 type of a thing where you're really, really sweating. And she was a fit lady. She was really, really good looking, very fit, like not bodybuilder fit in terms of unhealthy for a female, but she just looked amazing. And when she decided, I want to get pregnant, and I said to her, like, you're going to have to think about how much exercise you're doing in terms of the sweating detriment to your body. And she was totally on board with that, because in Chinese medicine, when you sweat, you're losing fluid, and that's a type of blood. Okay, so blood and sweat share that common fluid. Your body has to make sweat. Sweat isn't just water. So if I sweat a lot, I can't replace my fluids with water. I drink water, and then my body has to generate those fluids. So that takes up energy, that takes up resource. So you can sweat to your detriment. So I'm not saying don't do any exercise and don't do too much exercise. So somewhere in the balance there, being aware that you're not sweating too much would be a big one. Look, there's probably other things. It's I'm trying to be generic here so that you don't have to put too much info about yourself there. So yeah. Yeah. And yeah, just find, I think the best advice I could give you in all the midst of everything is just try to find something where you can be kind to yourself and enjoy, like have something that relieves the stress of it all for you. Like if you're an artistic person, you're a creative person, I mean, everyone has that in them somewhere. Like that might be it. Like, maybe you just get your guitar out and start playing a song, or you go, you do some painting, or you do some dancing or something that, helps you with that. All right. Hopefully that's a good enough answer. Artesia, catching you live. Great. Yeah. I'm trying to find the right time to do this. And because I've been doing a few more streams, I hope that, people are getting notified of the stream. I'm going to answer the next question now. Oops. So cold hands and feet. Awesome. Okay, this is a great question for Chinese medicine. Okay, thanks, Elise. I hope it helps you. And good luck on your journey. Hope you have a lovely family someday. All right. So Kayla says, I always have super cold hands and feet. I often have to wear double socks. Is there anything I can do to help? And does this usually mean just poor circulation? Okay. So this is something like, if you saw me as a herbalist and anyone in my herbal system, you shake your hands and you feel the freezing cold hands. In Chinese herbs, feel like I've won a prize. It sounds weird, isn't it? What I mean by that is it's a very specific kind of blood deficiency, usually. Now, not always, right? So you have, you'll probably have a certain kind of pulse, which then means you're going to have a certain kind of formula. And I would hazard a guess that your hands and feet wouldn't be cold all the time. Like, it depends on how blood deficient, how bad this is affecting you. So there's two ways you can get freezing cold hands and feet. One is, in Chinese medicine, you've got what we call cold blood. Okay, now, is your blood actually cold? Is anyone getting in their veins and testing it with a thermometer? No. It's a metaphorical concept. So what that means is there's a lack of yang in the blood to perfuse the blood with the warmness, right? The function, right? Qi or yang perfuses the blood, like it warms it, and then it can go everywhere and do what it's meant to be doing. Another good way of thinking about this is, if you're blood deficient in Chinese medicine, that means you've got less quality of blood. Your body is like reserving the good quality for the torso and the less good quality for the hands and the feet. So from a biological evolutionary sort of perspective, like, you can afford to lose a hand or a foot or a finger, but you can't afford to lose anything in this area. So it will always give priority to this area, to your organs, versus the hands and the feet. So that's blood deficiency. Another way you can get freezing cold hands and feet, or cold hands and feet, is like qi stuckness or stagnation. Now, qi stagnation, which is like a blockage, and that's more the poor circulation. So a stagnation of qi is like either there's just pure stagnation, or it's deficient and then there's less qi to move, and so then it's stuck. So both qi stagnation can have its roots in deficiency or in what we call excess, just a pure blockage. The best way to know which one it is, in Chinese medicine, the pulse diagnosis will just cut through the mustard straight away and we would know. Generally, so I just caveat generally, like, if the pulse was right for it, we'd still just treat you by the pulse. If you've got stagnant energy, it'll usually be more like cold hand, the whole arms and the whole legs also, right? Not freezing, but coolish, or feeling, cool. Whereas most often with the blood deficiency type of cold hands, the patient themselves doesn't notice it that much. Like, I will touch their hands when I feel their pulse, and I'll say, oh, do you always have like cold hands, or do people? I was like, oh, you've got cold hands, and they're like, oh, do I? Some people say that, and their hands are freezing. Now, this might also be because, you know, in the room there's an aircon going or something like that. So practitioners kind of rule all that stuff out as well. But like, I might often say that the person or does your partner say you've got cold hands and feet, or gee, your feet are freezing? So often that's the internal kind of blood deficiency type, rather than you feeling that they're cold. Now, that's not the hang your hat symptom, so don't say, oh, it's definitely that. So it's, you know. If you've purely got stagnation of qi, then, which is the poor circulation issue, like stuck qi, and it's from an excess reason, you'll generally have a feeling of, if you do exercise, you feel better, and probably some of that cold hands and feet will go away. So if you're pretty active and you move your body around enough, you know, the circulation will improve, because there's no lack of warmth there to actually help you. What the problem is just there's a lack of movement, right? So if you get moving, it'll kind of help. Whereas if you've got deficiency of qi or deficiency of blood, then the moving around doesn't do anything. It doesn't help much. It just kind of it's still there, right? So what we need to do is actually warm the blood, and this is a big difference in the formulas of blood tonic formula. So if you go to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, this not classical Chinese medicine, they will not use this formula very much. Like, I never hardly used this formula when I was treating blood deficiency. So you again, you need to see a practitioner to know if this is the right formula for you. But a common formula that it could be is a formula called Dang Gui Si Ni Tang. Right, so it's frigid extremities powder, literally called that, frigid like freezing. And some people get like chilblains or Raynaud's disease, like that could be a part, like those kinds of diseases or conditions can have this Chinese medicine pattern. Yeah, it is something that herbs could help. Now, if it's purely stagnation, acupuncture would help you much more than. So if you just did acupuncture and you did no herbs and you feel better from it, from even just one treatment, it's probably more stagnation, and moving that stagnation helps. Even the deficiency type of the stagnation. Whereas if it's if it's deficiency, blood deficiency, you definitely would not want to be vegan or vegetarian. That would be very hard to rectify it without herbs. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, that might be a way that you got like that, or you've had lots of blood loss in your life, or lots of issues with your menstrual cycle, very heavy cycles, like heavy bleeding, or like frequency of periods. You don't have to put any of that stuff in the comments, but that kinds of, like, how did it happen? That's what we're thinking. Sleep is going to be important to help you nourish blood. Yeah. So the formula basically uses blood tonic herbs. So Dang Gui Si Ni Tang uses like Dang Gui, which is a blood tonic herb, but it also uses cinnamon, right? And it's kind of warming the blood through that cinnamon way. And there's other herbs in there that are doing it. It's not just those things. Cool. So some good questions there. Right, got another question here from Adreli Galavo. Which diet is good for an autistic woman with blood deficiency? I currently don't eat any kind of meat. Okay, I'm just going to delete this one. And we'll put the new one in there. But I do eat eggs and milk. So thinking about going back to eating fish. Yep. So yeah, the more you can have, so let's say blood deficiency, autism aside, just blood deficiency, the more you can have animal-based foods, it will help you, because those things are full of yang, which is full of warmth, and yang is needed to perfuse the blood. Like, yang is needed to warm the blood, to make blood good quality. You need that. So eggs are good, right? So I would have plenty of eggs. I'd have 2 eggs a day or more than that if you can. The whole cholesterol, eggs causing cholesterol, it's a massive BS. It's you just need. I mean, do this in cahoots with your own practitioner and stuff like that. I'm not trying to say what you should do, but I will. So you just need to have like plenty of that dense kind of nutrition. Now, if you just jumped in the stream now, you might not have caught the start of this, but we did have a couple of questions about vegan and blood. There's a lot of vegans today. Vegans and blood deficiency and vegetarian, because it must be a religious time, because there's 2 people that had a similar kind of thing where they were saying they were vegan part of the year. So I was talking about things to do for that. So definitely warm, cooked and moist foods, staying away from cold, dry and raw. So you want to reduce juices, reduce the juice. No cold juice. Well, no juice, because juice is cold. You could add ginger into your cooking, because that will generally warm things, and it's good. And the fish is good. Look, you can make broth from fish. There's definitely different nutrient things that come from red meat versus white meats. But if you're not having, like, you're definitely better off having the white meats than no meat at all. So that would be helpful. Another food that's kind of can be used for blood deficiency in Chinese medicine is called royal jelly. I used to use this. I'm going to just put this in the comments. Now, I'll give you some caveats with the royal jelly. So I'm not sure what country you're in, but in Australia, we've got all these warning labels on royal jelly products. What is it? It's a type of I'm just reading your thing to make sure you're not a vegan. You are obviously not a vegan, but so it's a honey based product, right? So it's the honey that the bees make for the queen, right? The queen bee's honey. You can buy it in little vials of stuff and you just kind of drink it. It's quite sweet. It actually makes your tongue go a bit numb when you have it. So I heard about this when I was studying Chinese medicine. You know, all my teachers were like, "Oh, you can never be healthy being a vegetarian," you know, da 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 da. And I was like, "Yes, I can. Yes, I can." Eventually, I stopped, but it took me a long time. Like, I was vegetarian all the time. I was in China the first time. You know, I was vegetarian a while. So I used to eat this royal jelly sort of to, I don't know, help myself prevent. I didn't think I was blood deficient at that time, and you're often not when you're young anyway, and that's why you can kind of tolerate these things. But someone in Australia, a woman, gave her kid a lot of this royal jelly and they had an asthma attack from it. And lucky they didn't just pull it from the shelves, because that's what they often do with this stuff. They just put all these warning labels on it saying, you know, may cause anaphylaxis or may cause asthma or something like that. So you just don't have a lot of it. Like 1 or even half a vial is often enough for people to have every so often, every couple of days even, if it's sort of needed. So you would usually notice a bit of a boost of energy when you have this. So that's a kind of a food medicine-y sort of a product. It's not something that a practitioner will normally prescribe you, but you'll definitely see these things in Chinese food shops. So little sort of vials, they come in a box usually, and then there's these little vials and a little straw, and you just kind of drink it down. So so the other things that are good to tonify blood is things that are dark colored: blueberry, blackberry, what's that other thing, underground vegetables that are, oh god, it's gone out of my mind now. Beetroot. These kinds of things, right? So things that are blue, black, dark red colored naturally can tonify blood in Chinese medicine. So you can have more of that sort of stuff. But if you do eat eggs, I'd be having that. Now, there's nothing wrong with milk in Chinese medicine. It's not it's not like a detrimented food, but it certainly milk, like dairy, and the dairy types of foods were never a part of Chinese medicine understanding, because they just weren't a part of Chinese culture. Like I remember when I first went to China, even in 2001, you could hardly get milk there. Like you could get some milk. Now they drink more and more milk, and they do a lot more westernized stuff. You just did not get. You don't have tea with milk in China. You have tea just without milk. And they didn't have coffee then. I was there when the first Starbucks kind of opened up. I was like lining up outside the front of the thing, ready to get my coffee, right? I had to bring my own coffee with me because they didn't have coffee there. You just couldn't buy it. It just wasn't even there. And I was like, how does this society function? Perfectly fine without it. Well, now there's coffees everywhere. They've infiltrated these Western things have infiltrated that area. And I used to get really sick from the milk in China because they didn't do what we normally would do to it. Like, I can't remember which one they didn't do. They didn't homogenize or pasteurize. Someone told me that. I mean, now that I know what I know, they probably put random stuff in the milk because it was probably not milk. Anyway, I digress. What I'm saying is you don't have to have milk to be healthy, but milk is a kind of a nourishing yin substance. So it can make you more phlegmy, but if you're very underweight and you're blood deficient, milk can be a generative. It's going to generate substance for you, so it could be useful in that way. But if you're very phlegmy, I would avoid it. And certainly not, I'm not saying drinking liters of milk. I'm saying having like dairy in your diet, like dairy products, that kind of stuff. Cool. All right. I'm not sure if I've missed a question here or anything like that, but if any people have another question, they feel free to ask their question. Hope people are doing well in life and enjoying the seasonal change. Ready, it's going to be winter coming soon. I mean, not coming, but it's going to be autumn coming soon here. I'm sure that you guys are coming into spring there, so that'll be good. This time has just gone really quickly. That's great. So if there's any, I'll just give a couple of minutes. If there's any other questions people want to ask, now's the time to ask them. Otherwise, we'll probably end the stream. Just going to quickly look and see if there's anything else I've missed here. Cool. Awesome. All right. Sounds good. So, yeah, if people, what have I got to say? Subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber. I'd love to grow the channel more. Always want to do that. So if you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe. And if you've got an idea for a video or some kind of topic you'd like to have, that would be good. I'd like to know. What have we got coming up? I'm actually doing a series at the moment of like what to expect when you first see a practitioner, and I've just finished editing a video. Oh yeah, okay, we've got some respiratory issues. Respiratory issues. Is it like asthma, coughing, easy get sick with respiratory problems? And just tell me what season you're in, like where you are, not your exact address. your postcode. No, just your country that you're in, so I know what season you're in now. Let me just, hang on, I've taken a screenshot of the wrong thing. This is artists here. So we've got one about autism, and yeah, I actually had this question with my class yesterday. They asked the same question. And that was a that was an hour of an answer. I'll try to give you the condensed answer. Okay, so we're going to talk about is suffering from respiratory issues. Yeah, so we kind of need a bit more info about that. Maybe we go to the autism one first. So autism in Chinese medicine, this is a big area. So we think about Chinese medicine in terms of the 5 elements. I actually might try to find one of my little element pictures. So I can put this up on the screen so you can kind of get an idea of it. For people that are sort of either studying Chinese medicine or, you maybe you're in a mode of self-studying or you're actually learning it. I'm just going to try and find my little 5-element picture that I've got here somewhere. Generation cycle. Yep, that'll do. Let's try and put that in there. You always kind of think about things in terms of the 5 elements. So we're always we're kind of always bringing this into our remembrance. Okay, I've just got to find this now. I've got to find it again. The picture again. Kind. Okay. See if that'll do it. Okay, great. Okay, we'll use that. Whoa, that's very big. Let's make it a bit smaller. A bit smaller again. Right, so we're answering this question about what causes autism in Chinese medicine. Okay, I'm going to have to put this like this. There we go. So we always kind of think about this. Now, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So the wood element relates to... Sorry, the fire. Let's start with the fire. The fire element relates to our mind, our thought processes in terms of our ability to have emotional connections with things, thinking and doing and being... who you are. That's all fire, right? It's all your Shen. So in one sense, we can say it's some kind of Shen disturbance. Your sense, how you sense the world, and this is often an issue with autism types of, because again, it's exactly the same question I had from my students in the class. It's a massive issue. Sorry, not issue, a massive area, right? Broad. Like some people, what they experience in autism can be, and that's, they call it a spectrum, right? For a good reason. Can be very, very, really varied. So like a type of autistic kind of condition where called Asperger's is like they have sensory kind of perception issues with, you can't tell if people are laughing with them or at them, for instance. So if someone tells a joke, there's so many nuances that are kind of going on in your mind to decide in your mind, like, is this something I should laugh along with? Is this funny? Are they laughing at me? This kind of stuff. So there's some kind of like mucking up of that perception, and that's a part of the fire element. Now, the other element that has to do with this is the earth element over here, the yellow one. So the earth element relates to the spleen and stomach, your digestion, but in the spirit, they call them the spiritual resources. It's the yi, which is the intellect, and that is your ability of like somewhat discernment of, like someone says something, do I take this on board? What do I do with this? A thought pops in your mind, a thought you can't get rid of. Like is that a worry? Is that worry? Like, is there kind of an obsession or, things like that? So I think with autism, we often see a dysfunction of between fire and earth. So if I was seeing a patient like this, what I would do is ask them questions to determine what their physical pattern of disharmony is, and then work out how that is causing that mental cognition, whatever, disharmony. So in Chinese medicine, there's a massive link between, if it's got to do with your earth element, it has to be a massive link between what you're doing to your earth, which is your food, your diet, what you've put into your body. And it's not just what you've put in through your mouth, it's what's been put into your body in other ways, right? So, you see these things where, is it caused by like vaccines or reactions to not the actual product of the vaccination, it's the other things that are in there that they use to create that product, which is like your body has to digest that, right? Now, does that need to be in there? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I in that area. Like, I'm a Chinese medicine scientist. But anything that you put into your body has to be digested, and that's the earth's job. So if that's being overwhelmed at whatever age, now this is where it becomes a real complex thing, because when you're younger, your earth element is at its weakest. It's still growing. It's still maturing. It's not weak, but it's immature. That means it's not. It doesn't mean it's weak as in everyone's got a deficiency. It means let's not like a child as well. Like, you don't overwhelm a child with complex subjects because they don't have the maturity of their thoughts, of that process to handle that stuff. It's the same as with your food. You coax a child into eat. So how they learn how to eat, autism and this could be things like ADHD or ADD or different these kinds of, there's always names are changing and stuff like that. But all these sorts of things, I'm sure, are included in your question. How we digest foods, affects how we digest thoughts. There's no separation of that in Chinese medicine. So that's one place we can start. We could definitely start to intervene there. And then similar to what I was saying with the question for the other person today about for the fertility thing, right? Like if I said, to you, stand on your head for 10 minutes every day and that might help your autism in Chinese medicine, you do that and it doesn't help it. Has that helped you in any other way? Is that just a waste of your time or detrimental to you? So the things we're going to ask you to do are going to be helpful to you whether it helps your autism or not. Like, let's just get what Chinese medicine wants you to do is get in line with nature, get in line with health, the things that are just going to help your health. So fix up your digestion, okay? How do you know your digestion's a bit fucked, a bit not great? Is probably your bowels. Now, it's hard to know with kids because they don't always tell you. Or maybe they do. Might yell out that they're doing a poo or something. So if the bowels are hard to get out, it's really constipated, that's one side of it. The other one is too sticky and loose. Do you feel bloated? Do you feel sick after eating? These things aren't always an easy fix because if it's a kid or even an adult, right? And you're used to certain foods, you're addicted to flavors and sugars and all the processing and the packet stuff that's in packet foods, right? It's just criminal. You're just going to be able to stop that. Often at the aspects of for people that with the autism results in this picky eating issue. So, I had a patient once that said, my kid won't eat anything if it's not out of a packet. Like they had to cut up an apple and put it in a packet and give it to the kid in the empty, like they had to use an empty chip packet, cut up the apple, put it into a packet so that kid would eat it out of a packet because it's so used to eating out of a packet. I don't know. I just didn't know what to say there. I was like, if that works, keep doing that. Like, they're doing their best, right? Yeah. So it's partly that Shen. So anything to do with your mind relates to fire. So that's the top one here. And then the earth is the E, the intellect, which is So there are two ways we can kind of intervene, right? Now, another aspect that kind of is involved in autism is probably the metal element. Metal helps us in a more, like we think about personality types and the kind of the those sort of functions. Discernment could be part of that. It's probably more earth, right? Deciding what's right and wrong, and the moral part of that is much more metal, right? So the spiritual realm of our body is metal. How do we think about this? And this is through what we call the Po. The Po, or the corporeal soul, is a part of metal. And if we think about what that does, is this a rational thought? Is this something I should hold on to? Is this a thing that's serving me? Is this a thing that's helping me? But can I even get to the point of doing that? Maybe I need earth functioning and certainly fire functioning to be able to do that. So you may have a person that's just really, I just read your question. I'm not autistic, by the way. I didn't assume that you were. Probably those sort of people wouldn't even ask that. Wouldn't they even ask the question? They're probably not on this channel, on this chat. But yeah, this is where it can become hard to intervene just for yourself, right? Because sometimes you're like, well, it's all buggered up, like all the elements. Which one do we start with? A practitioner is kind of going to be hopefully be able to root through that a little bit better than just yourself. But if you start with something, it could still help you. So a place you can start for yourself is earth, your digestion. A place you can start for metal would be breathing. So breathing exercises and breathing stuff helps metal. And what does metal do for us in that other stuff I was trying to say was like habits, methodology, routine. Now, in some types of autism, this is a big deal, right? If they don't have that routine, they really, really, like, it's too much rigidity. Now, what's the answer to the rigidity? Which one talks about which one? Well, it's either wood or water. So water is a good example of the flow, because literally you can imagine that with the flow of water. Water flows, water moves. But wood is also more, how wood gets that nature from water. So flexibility, creativity. Okay, everything's a mess and I can still function. Like, okay, I'm not going to put I think you can see it actually. If I move the screen down here, you can kind of see there's my messy desk here, right? Where is it? There we go. I'll just put that there. You can sort of see down here, right? You can't see all the mess of the desk. And now I can function in that mess because it doesn't bother me. But like, I'm looking at this thinking it would be better if it was clear for me, right? It would be better. But that's how I know I'm not autistic. Well, it's not how I know I'm not autistic. That's how I know I'm not a metal element. I'm not in excess in that way. I'm not rigid in that way. And I'm also much more of a wood element person. Now, I can function in that mess to an extent, and then I'll be like, okay, I have to clean everything up. And I like things to be neat and orderly. Like I should say it like this, I would like it to be. But do I have it in me? I'd rather do this stream and spend the time doing this than spend the time cleaning up and doing other. I just feel like that's mundane and boring. But then eventually I will do that. Now that's having the balance of those elements. But when you see someone where it's all or nothing, like they never clean up, and there's too much flow and there's no rigidity. They need some metal in there. I think what we want to do with when we see how we would diagnose this is you would have to spend quite a bit of time either knowing that person, getting to know them through maybe even through the parent. What's not working there? What aspects aren't working there? So thinking about something like ADHD. Some of my adult patients that I have these kinds of issues, and they struggle with routine and getting things done in a timely way, or like Sometimes it's thoughts because they can't concentrate so much on what, like they're losing concentration, losing time, not being, that kind of stuff. And then you have I've seen some younger kids that actually haven't been my patients, but they've been kids of my patients, that I've noticed where they are either non-verbal, they can't communicate properly, or they have like inappropriate behaviors at certain times, or sometimes all the time. And like you'd have to then think about why in Chinese medicine are they having those behaviors? And one of the things I said to my students yesterday is, not yesterday, the day before that, was how to understand how Chinese medicine works is to understand why don't you have that problem. Like what aspect of these elements, of this 5-element system is happening. Now this is going a bit heavy for people that aren't students or really invested in learning Chinese medicine. But if we understand, like for instance, why don't I have any number of diseases? I was just trying to pick something that doesn't sound bad. Okay, here's a good example. Why don't I have loose stools? Okay, why don't I have constipation, or why don't I have diarrhea? Like, let's say I've got perfectly normal stools. So why do I have that? And why don't I have those other things? Because that means my earth element must be working properly, because that's what it does. Is there any other element? Is there any other organ involved in doing that? Well, there are other elements that help that earth do that, but that is earth's job to do that. So that means it must be healthy. It must be working. Whatever you're doing in your life, Marie, it must be helping you. Okay, so that's what's been great for me with the carnivore diet. It's like, okay, a lot of people think, oh, carnivore, you're going to get constipated. Well, it's made my bowels the perfectest they've ever been, right? So, yeah, I'm going to get on to this other person's question before I start talking about my own things. But yeah, that's kind of how we would think about. That's the way Chinese medicine provides you a way of being able to think about things. Which is great. That's why I like it. That's why I find it fun. Find it exciting. So I'm going to get onto this question, right? And then we're going to finish. I am doing carnivore diet, Tice. That's a good name, good YouTube name. I'm day 44 today. I started on the 1st of January. Okay, so we've got this question about what have we got here? Was it this one? Let's see. Respiratory issues. Okay, we've got a few follow-up things there to help me. I'm going to leave the 5-element thing on there because that way I can refer to that if I want to. Okay, so Artesia, thank you. You're in Florida, okay, and got sick after a fog. Have you heard that there is I'm just reading some of these other follow-ups. Have you heard there is a strange fog that's making people sick? No, but that sounds terrible. We don't have any strange fogs in Australia. Where I live, it's very dry in terms of just generally it's a dry place. Speaking of dryness, I need to fill up my water container. So, yeah. I've just been sitting on this chair for all this time. Fogs, I'm not sure what could be in the fog, right? So, yeah, okay, there's environmental toxins and stuff like that. Like, I'm fully aware that there's probably, I don't know, the government's spraying you with all kinds of weird stuff all the time. Like, we have those chemtrails here. Like, you see them all the time in the air, and then the weather changes, or then it's like raining suddenly when it wasn't raining. Like, so I'm not sure about that. I don't know what that stuff does in Chinese medicine because thank God they weren't probably spraying you in the Han Dynasty. I don't know. But okay, so let's think about what creates good health from a respiratory aspect. It's the metal element. So you see this one at the bottom here that's grey. So what how does metal get its strength? Well, it's generated by the one before it, so earth, which is your digestion. And this is a very common scenario where you'll notice, okay, if I eat the wrong foods, I get phlegmy. That means earth isn't able to generate metal, and then you've got damp and phlegm, and that's making you get sinusy or phlegmy or something like that, right? So living in Florida, which means it's probably a humid area, right? It's hot and humid quite often, and you're going to come into winter. I mean, you're in winter now, and then you're going to come into spring and then into summer. So stuffy and no energy. So the environment, if it's a fog there, that's a damp and probably cold environment. I heard that it was very snowing in Florida or something. Like someone said, I saw that on the news somewhere. Strangely really cold in that region. That's not really that freezing like that anyway. So it's a big part of Chinese medicine to observe the seasons, right? And there's a whole other aspect of Chinese medicine which is about predicting what will happen based on seasonal, like every year the seasons are slightly different. The whole climate change thing is nothing new to Chinese medicine. Like they predict that the climate will change every year. Like it's going to be different. That's just a joke. If anyone didn't get that. So when it's cold, things contract. Your body, your pores contract. Everything's contracting. And if you catch a cold, then the way we treat that is we want to open the pores and let you sweat, but you don't want to sweat so much that then you're losing too much fluid. So it's a very fine line between, that. So it's hard for me to give you an exact advice of what to do now because one is I can't give people individual advice what to do, but Chinese medicine does treat these things, and it's one of its best places to shine in terms of cold and flu treatments, right? So what we want to do is naturally go along with what your body's trying to do, which should be when you first get sick, everything contracts. We want to open the pores. Your body wants to get a fever so that it can sweat and let that out. So anything that goes stops that process from happening can sometimes trap that cold in there, and then you get a cough that doesn't go away or sort of lingering there. Now, when you are the idea is you're facing the environment every day. So when you're in an environment that's very challenging, so if you're not used to that cold and then your area suddenly got really cold or it's got really foggy and very damp, your body kind of has an adjustment to that. That's kind of trying to work that out, and that's often a time when we get sick. So what can we do? Let me try to think of stuff you could probably just do for yourself. Anything you do to strengthen the earth is going to help metal. So take the pressure off your digestion, eating as clean diet as you can. I'd stay away from dairy products because they will tend to make you more phlegmy, and that will not help your lungs. So if you can just sort of avoid that for a little period of time, that would probably be helpful. You want to maybe use some points on your chest. I'll just move my microphone down a little bit. So put this up here because this is such a weird mic. If I don't speak right into it, you won't be able to see. So where your clavicle comes down into here, I'm just going to move this away. There's a little notch here, right? Like working out which side to go on. So right here. And that point is called Ren 22, and you can press on that point. So also down that Ren channel, there's a point right between your two breasts in the center, and that's called Ren 17. And that will be quite sore to press, like quite sensitive. So you can press these points to help open your chest. Another point that's there, that's a good one. I'll try and show you on this side. If you trace along where your clavicle is, like this, that's my bone, up to your shoulder, and come down from that into, there's a little, it'll drop into a little groove there. And you put one finger in one space and the other, that's in the intercostal spaces. That's lung 1 and lung 2. Now, those points are better to press them than to actually needle them, really. I mean, never needle them yourself. But a practitioner can't press that hard on them, because when we needle them, we have to go this way. So we avoid, because it's very dangerous, could easily puncture your lungs here. So these are good points you can press. And what you'll find is when you're pressing it, so I'm just literally using my 2 fingers. I'm going to move my shirt so you can sort of see. So I'm going to go this way along here. And then that's my clavicle bone. I come up, kind of go down into that groove there. And you can do this little bird pecking method of pressing. You could do each different side. You can kind of just rub around the area, but you really need to get right into that little hole, that little depression that's there. And those points can be good. They're going to strengthen your lungs. Now, the other ones that are on your hands is this is your lung channel here. So this little hole here, this little depression, that's lung 9. You could press on that. So you just would sort of, I'll do it like this so you can see, but I will just use my thumb and do it like this. I'll be pressing my thumb into the point like that. Now, don't press that too hard. You won't need to press it too hard. Your lung channel also extends down here. It's totally not even in the video. Like this. So if I have my hand, I'm just going to get rid of that 5-element thing. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so just kind of here. So this is my lung channel here, going down to here. So just here on your forearm is a good spot. Now you'll basically just go wherever you feel. It's definitely the yin side, so it's definitely this medial side where there's usually no hair on your arm. There'll be a really sort of sore spot here. That's like a lung 6 around that area. That's a good one for sort of wheezing and asthma-y kinds of things. Now, you could just massage that lung channel. Those things are good to kind of strengthen your lungs so that then it has more ability to kind of face the environment. That's the idea. Like, you're trying to strengthen your lungs so that it can be more resilient to the environment. So yeah, I hope that helps you. So you've got this cough. You said you forgot to mention this bad cough, right? So yeah, you want to, all those points that we just mentioned could help with cough, right? So especially these ones here on your chest. Sometimes I'll even use the old Vicks Vapor Rub. In Australia, we have that Vicks stuff. It's like camphor, clove oil, menthol, like, you mixed into some sort of balm or cream. Eucalyptus oil, that's another one that's good. So you could have a small amount of that. Don't burn yourself with this stuff. So you usually dilute it into a cream or a balm, and then you just kind of rub it in those areas. So then you're using the aromaticness of those essential oils, but you're also activating the points, like using the points there. All right, sounds good. So I hope this has been useful and helpful to people today. Yeah, I might make another video I might make a separate video about autism, because this is it's such a massive area to think about, just to think, how does Chinese medicine think about it, and maybe what you can do to help, and just to kind of, yeah, it's probably a good idea. So thanks everyone for jumping on the stream. It's been great. This has been good. I really tried to get up earlier today, but I can't. I mean, I could, but I didn't want to. So this is a perfect time for me. It's 11 a.m. now, and it's probably past midnight for most people in the US. But it's been great to catch some people. Yeah, awesome. And yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And what I'm doing is every second week it'll be at this time. For this until March, because what's today is the 13th of February. Yeah, so there'll be another one in 2 weeks, which will be the 27th of February, or the 26th for the US, the night of the Wednesday the 26th, And then I'm going to have to change. I might not be able to do these streams for a while. So I thought I'd do them now for the first 2 months of the year, because once March happens, I don't know if you can see I don't think you can because I didn't put it on there, but that's my schedule on the side there with all the greens are classes. So I'm just getting myself organized before I get into the get into the busyness of life, which I love. I love the busyness of life. So yeah, hope you're doing well. Sorry, just reading that comment. Artist Sia says, thanks, I didn't eat for 3 days. And now, okay, so you're really unwell, right? Yeah. And that's a good thing to recognize with Chinese medicine, is like they say, if you've got a low appetite, the only time you kind of really don't push yourself to eat, I mean, is if you're sick, like with a cold or a flu or some kind of gut issue, like an acute thing. That's a good thing to observe that, right? So in Chinese medicine, appetite is really important to a way for us to recognize your health, but it's your body's way of reserving its energy. It's like saying, don't strain that spleen and stomach. Give it a little bit of a break so that then your body can kind of do all it's got to do. You're only really in detriment in that scenario if a person was like so underweight that if they didn't eat, they're going to die. Now, for the majority of people, they've got probably, I mean, I've probably got a good 1 year of food in me if I didn't eat, right? Like, people have got storage there to last you. So it's not going to hurt you to not eat. And sometimes it's your body's way of just like conserving its energy. It's like saying, okay, let's suspend this so that then we can focus on treating the other stuff. Yeah. So I hope you feel better, because it sounds it's horrible to be sick. Like, I was sick with a cough last year and it just would not go away. I think I showed you that on that video. I went to China. I was sick before I left, and then I got better. And then I got sick again because it was just like humid and freezing and humid and freezing. And in Australia where I was, it was freezing outside, and then I had to keep the heater on all the time inside to try to stay warm. And then when I got to China, I was like going out. Normally I hate the humidity, the hot humidity. I hate it. And when I got to China, I got out of the taxi, off the airplane out of the taxi, and it was like hot and humid, and I was like, oh, I can breathe. I can breathe without coughing in this warm, humid air. It's just normally like repulsive to me. Like, I'm like, where's my aircon and my nice crisp dryness? And it was just, because it's you're not comfortable in that. But I was like, so it's horrible feeling sick like that. It's not nice to have a cough. So it is one of the things with Chinese herbs where it's like really specific herbs for different coughs. Like, there's probably, I want to say, like at least 50 different kinds of permutations of cough formulas that can be used. And this, like, there might be 2 or 3, maybe let's say 5 that are super common kind of formulas that are used for treating cough. And then there's like these extreme different weird coughs that can happen. Like, I don't want to, like, extreme by like really, someone, you just jumped in the stream. We're going to finish soon. But I can stay around a little bit longer. Radiant Fanatic, because you're such a good fan of the show. You're such a good supporter. So if you have a question, I'll answer your question, but we're kind of coming to the end. Anyway, I was just saying, having a cough is just so it's really debilitating, because that's, your body can't get as much oxygen as it would normally get, and it really makes people debilitated. Like, I had a patient once that had a cough for 20 years, and he tried so many things, and he, with the herbs, it turned around. It got better. And like, I mean, I wasn't surprised in a way, because I was like, okay, you've not tried herbs before, let's try this. And his pulse just fitted a formula kind of exactly from my understanding. I was like, this is a good chance this is going to help you. But he'd had it for so long, he just didn't think it would ever go away. Now, it wasn't all the time, but it was just a lingering cough for 20 years that had never gone away. So your body can sort of get used to stuff, and get you just sort of, it works around it. So I hope you're not. I'm not trying to say you have your cough for 20 years at all, but lungs are important to kind of look after. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So we might if I'll stay around for a little bit longer, but I just need to go quickly use the loo and make a quick coffee. So I'm going to pause just for a minute. So if people want to ask a question, you can ask a question, and I'll be back in like literally probably 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. Just talk amongst yourselves. All right, we're back. So if people still want to do some Q&A, we can. Yeah, just waiting for my parcel man to come and pick up the parcel as well. So I'm trying to keep an ear out for that. Radiant Fanatic, I'm glad I caught you live. It's 10:30 p.m. here. Yeah, herbs work wonders. My mum had a cough that wouldn't go away. She started using mullein leaf as a tea. Cool. I always wanted to move to Florida, but many people advise against me due to some mold. So that's another part of dampness, right? Like mold growing in places in the home. Like it's like that's a damp environment. And that definitely, like, some people are not as affected by that because they've got strong metal element, they've got strong lungs, and then some people who are just so affected by it so quickly, can get very sick for it really quickly. All right, TCM question for today. Okay. Oh yeah, that's good. is about mold. If you haven't spoken about it already, I would love to know, what does mold feed off? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we think about mold as a type of, like it fits into dampness, and like sugar is one of the things that, like damp, you know, dampness loves sugar, and any kind of things of the sweet nature. So that's carbohydrates and that kind of stuff. It proliferates in an environment where there isn't enough yang. So where there's too much yin and not enough yang. Now that sounds too simple to be sort of true, like realistic, but I'll kind of, not realistic, but it's a very simple answer. But basically think about it as sunshine being the yang. So where there's not light, like we know that light kills that. Now you don't actually remember, I don't know if you remember this, might you know, I just remember when COVID happened, like there was one of those little streams with Donald Trump or something. He was like saying, you know, maybe we could use some kind of, it was the stream that got, one of his talks that got taken out of context, where he was saying maybe we could put some kind of disinfectant, some kind of light into the body or something. And like someone had probably told him that kind of idea, right? So what kills germs and kills bugs and kills everything is literally sunshine. Now we can't take our blood out and put sunshine on it, and then, but like light, that is yang, right? Warmth, that is yang. So when mold grows, there's got to be an environment that's encouraging that yin to be there. We need more yang in the picture. So what's yang? Yang is more dryness than dampness in this scenario. So I often use this example for talking about dampness with the pot plant, right? So if you overwater the pot plant, and you can either poke some holes in the bottom of that pot plant and let the water drain out. But if you don't do that quick enough, what I've found is some of my plants will die. You've got to put them out in the sun. Now you don't want to put them in the hot sun so that the plant itself sort of withers and then your plant's died. So you need the yang is like going to dry the damp, and the holes in the pot plant sort of drain the damp. So they're the two ways that Chinese medicine sort of treats dampness. So let's get back to this question. What does mold feed off? So it feeds off a damp environment. So it feeds off of like what's creating a damp environment, like carbohydrates, sugars, processed foods, the spleen qi being weak, the spleen. Let me see if I can add this little thing in here. Another picture. I'm not sure why it's not letting me do this. It wants me to add another one. I'm just trying to find my element picture again. I have to go through all this stuff to get it again. See if it's there. Yeah, okay, we can try and use this one. This does not have the background. This has got no background on it, but it'll still do. Okay, so if we put these here, right, we've got wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So the main thing when we've got dampness or mold would be earth, right? So earth is it's not functioning properly, for one, and it's too damp and not dry enough. So what would dry the earth, right? What helps the earth? Wood can control, like we need wood to control the earth. There's one cycle where you've got so wood controls earth controls water controls fire controls metal. So when wood controls earth, what we see there in a healthy relationship is that it's the spreading, the moving effects of wood ensure that smooth chi is flowing so that it's not getting blocked up and buggered up, right? Getting stuck. So a good example of this would be like, look at a river where there's a flow, okay, versus a river where there's no flow or there's some kind of blockage there, right? So if the river's flowing properly, mold doesn't grow in that river. Like algae doesn't like bloom. It doesn't stagnate and get stuck. Now, in some rivers, what they do when they're building a bridge is to save money. Let's say the river's going across like this. They put two little islands of soil builded out so that then they have to build a smaller bridge. That's what they did to this one bridge in Perth. And then either side of those little islands, it got all gross. Like it's all algae blooming, and you know that's the kind of idea of mold. Now, why is that happening? Because the water flows through the middle, but it's not flowing. It's not going to go around the edge. Now they've created that blockage, so they had to put stuff in there to aerate the water, and that's what wood does. Wood's like, you think about those. Excuse me, the aeration. So if you've got liver chi stagnation, that in turn can create more damp. Like it's not going to help the earth. So what would you do? Exercise, singing, laughing, moving, ensuring that it's moving. And that's where pungent foods helps earth. So pungent acts on wood, cinnamon, garlic, ginger, mint, basil, coriander, all these sorts of things help that. So adding that into those richer, heavier foods, if you are going to eat them, will help you digest them, because it's like literally putting that ability to aerate those foods into it. Which then helps you tolerate it more. So yeah, to get to your question here, the other one saying, would you say dairy feeds mold? I still eat fermented dairy, but sometimes I'm tempted to completely remove it and see how I feel. Like, that's a good thing to be able to do, is to be able to do that experiment, remove it, change it. If you're just changing that one thing, you'll know it's that one thing. So you might need to do that for 2 weeks. I'd say like the first few days you'll have some ups and downs, and then you might really notice what it's doing, and then you might feel the full benefits of whatever it's doing by the next week. And then you add it back in, and then you're like, okay, yeah. So we could try to increase wood to sort of like, if you think about the wood is wind, and the wood wind kind of is going to blow the damp off the earth, kind of an idea, right? Let me just think about what else we can do. So mold can grow, or dampness can grow, if the earth is just weak. Now, why would the earth be weak? Maybe fire isn't generating earth. So in that case, maybe there could be lots of ways you'd see this play out. But if a person had depression, and this is kind of a two-way street. Like on one hand, you've got depression and like low mood, lethargy, don't feel like doing very much, and it's a lot of it's mental. But then there's this physical lethargy and this heaviness, and that's all part of earth, right? Heavy limbs, feeling physically heavy and tired, and then that often leads people to eating habits that don't help earth either, right? Okay, I'll try to make myself feel better, because the original thing was I didn't feel good, so I'll have some sugary foods, or I'll have some sweet foods, and that makes sense from a treating the fire perspective, because that's the original problem. But then those sweet foods don't help the earth, and they just create a more, let's say, moldier situation. So that kind of could be one of the ways that it works, that helps. I always mention ginger, because that's a supportive food for the earth, right? It helps the stomach function better, and that could be useful. That could be used. So Liz also has some questions about mold. I'm also very curious about mold. I have mold issues this year in my body. I have to find a specialist to help me, because I'm not allergic to anything, and I eat everything, but it only exacerbates my mold issue. Yeah. So this kind of like, how do I say this? if you look for something on a test, you might find it. This is one issue with tests and stuff, right? If we test, we're going to find it. Now, I'm not saying don't test for things, but there must have been a symptom that led you to have that test. Okay, so that's what we would focus in on in Chinese medicine. And because if someone came in to me with just a blood test or some kind of test and they said, I've got this, help me, and there's no other symptoms in their body, it's very hard to know what to do. We could feel their pulse and see what imbalance there is from that. And look, it's very likely they're going to have some symptoms. I have this with patients who come in for cholesterol. Like they say, I've got high cholesterol. My doctor wants to put me on this blah, blah, blah medicine. I don't want to take that. And that's the only thing that's bothering them. Now, in all likelihood, I can't say 100% sure, but they've probably got some other stuff. Like maybe their sleep isn't good, maybe their digestion isn't good. So we're looking in terms of these elements, like what things aren't working there so that as well as they could be, so we could improve that, and then that improves health. But if there's just that test result and there's no symptoms, well, like we have to ask ourselves, what, like, is that you're going to go and have a procedure or something like that just for that test result? Now, most of the time, yeah, there is something that's bothering you. So you might have had a really chronic issue that you just haven't got to the root of, like you've been really tired, and okay, you've got a symptom there, you've got something to work with in addition to that test. So I think we have to be careful about just testing for testing's sake. I'm not saying that's what you've done at all. Please, that's not the that's not the point of the comment. But yeah, we do find sometimes like we're looking at minute things that maybe we have to ask ourselves, is that really helpful? How helpful is that to us? Just to see this question, I've have to find a specialist to help because I'm not allergic to anything and I eat everything, but it only is aspects of mold issues. So yeah, you could go into a process of elimination in some kind of diet way, and then you would see. Now, if you're under the care of a particular practitioner, like let them help you with that, or see a practitioner that's going to help you with that. That's honestly one of the reasons why many people go to a carnivore diet, to sort of go to a process of elimination. If you don't want to do it through a carnivore diet, a common diet I would usually give people from a Chinese medicine perspective. I don't know if I'd give it to them now in terms of now that I know about the carnivore, but in general, is if you're not overweight, you just want to go onto what we would call the Qingdan diet, a clear, bland. That's what Qingdan in Chinese medicine means. So no excessive flavors. And like, okay, so firstly, no packet food. Everything's got to, so it would basically just be rice, congee, with something added in there. So you could have just plain white rice that you've made as a congee, and then you add one thing in, and then you add another one thing in. Very similar to how we would wean a kid. And you could have a meat-based kind of congee sort of thing, or add some vegetables kind of in there, and then use that as a base, and then you kind of go from there, right? So there are other options. There's also a diet called the FODMAP diet, where they actually process you through particular foods and stuff like that, as a process of elimination. One of the biggest things with diet now that we're finding is there's just so many ingredients in things that shouldn't be there. They don't need to be there. Like you guys just jumped in the stream now, but I was talking before. Someone asked me a question about bacon, and I was saying, like, I bought this bucket of bacon this week, and like it had sugar in it, and I had no idea that it had sugar in it until I ate it, and I was like sick the next day. And then I look on the ingredients, and like it just was just called bacon, and like there were 2 packets next to each other in the thing. One said maple, but in the same brand, maple syrup bacon or something, and the other one was just normal bacon. And I was like, man, this bacon just, like what I'm saying is they're sneaky fuckers. Like they're just, why are they putting sugar in just normal bacon. Yeah, it's just a madness. It's very hard to navigate all that if you just, you're busy, you want to, you just try to function. You have to work out a way to make the food yourself all the time. So, yeah, highly polluted, Radiant Fanatic. Liz says I'm in a highly polluted city. Yeah. Liz, I'm new here and I'd like to know what's your name and when do you go live? Yeah, that's a good question. When do I go live? Marie Hopkinson is my name. And welcome to the channel. That's great that you're new. And okay, so what I'm doing is, well, what I have been doing is alternating weeks because I'm in Australia. You can probably tell by my accent. I'll try to speak slowly sometimes. So about 9 a.m. Perth time, which is opposite end of the world. If you're in the US, it'll be 9 p.m. your time, roughly, something like that, or 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. around that time. Sorry, yeah, on the previous day, so the Wednesday night, alternating weeks. Now, I can only do this till the end of February, so there'll be one more stream at this time that we are now, next in 2 weeks from now. Because then I'm just looking at my calendar here on the wall. I've got a lot going on in March. March and April is when my main uni teaching starts. So I teach at uni, teach Chinese medicine. And the other time I'm doing is a Friday evening, 7 p.m. Perth time. So Perth time is GMT plus 8. So that's more for people that are in the UK. And that'll be about sort of, I think we're about 8 or 7 hours ahead of them or behind them. So we're ahead. So if it's 7 p.m, it'll be about, I don't know, something like 11 a.m. or something on the Friday morning in the UK. So there'll be a stream next week. So they're the times I'm doing the streams at the moment. So I'm trying to do a stream once a week. I will have to change this time slot because all my days are I don't even know if I'll be able to do this time slot again. Late at night does work for me better than early in the morning. Yep. Cool. I'm glad you love the Australian accent. Well, if you have a question, Liz, you're welcome to answer the. You can answer your own question. You can ask a question if you'd like to. Yeah. So how do we get, just getting back to this mold idea? It's a kind of, we think about it as a kind of dampness. So what you're trying to do with damp or mold is make the body inhospitable to it. Herbs wise, what we would try to do if your body needs it, we'd know this kind of by your pulse, is give you really hot herbs that literally blasts, it's like putting sunshine inside your body. It can blast that damp out by making the body inhospitable to the damp. Other ways that damp is treated in Chinese medicine would be flushing damp. Now, it wouldn't be for mold. Mold is a kind of thing where you've got had it for probably quite a long time. It's taken time for it to build up. Awesome, you've subscribed. Thank you. Subscribe to the channel and share the show. Yeah. Look, you can subscribe and they sometimes don't even notify you. I don't know, whether they do. Yeah. So I also, I think in the show notes for this one, I have, is it in there? Is it in the show notes for this one? I'm not sure. I have an email thing that you can get on, a newsletter, which I very rarely send them out, but I'll let you know when the things are happening. And there's some kind of mini mental health course that I have. I'm just going to see if I can find the link to that, and you can sign up. It's free. And so I'm gonna have to search on YouTube my own. Yeah, there we go. I found the video. So where is this thing here? I'll put the link in here. So if you sign up to this little mini mental health course, you'll be on my email list. I also have a paid course, which is, I'm just going to put this in the link, the stream here. So and that's much more detailed for like self-care with the 5 elements. So if you want to learn about how to help yourself through the 5 elements, more like a little bit of physical, a little bit of mental, all the kind of self-care things you can do for each element for your body, that link is in the description of this video now, I think. And then this link I just put there is a free one, and if you sign up to that, then you'll be in my emails. And if I change the times of the stream, I'll send out an email. Liz says, what should I add to my ginger to make it more potent? Should I add oregano tea? And what are some of the herbs we should add to our list? Yeah, so look, you don't need to add anything to ginger to make it more potent. Ginger's quite potent by itself. The difference between a food and a medicine is often just the dosage and the quantity, as in they're the same thing, the dose and the quantity, but the frequency, right, which is about the quantity that you're having. So there's 2 types of ginger. I'm just going to put your question up here on the screen that we can use, and they come from the same plant. So you've got fresh ginger and you've got dried ginger. I just had the dried ginger out a second ago on the thing, so I'll show you that. Now you can get both of these yourself. You can make the dried ginger yourself. So here's the dried ginger. Okay. Now, when you're drying dampness, you want dried ginger, right? When you're trying to soak up the moisture, this is kind of what you would use. If you've got nausea, or like feeling sick, feeling like you're going to be sick, or other things, we use the fresh ginger for. But if you've actually got proper dampness, you probably would have diarrhea or looser stools. They're on the looser side, so they're either not as formed as they could be, a bit sticky kind of bowels, or anything worse than that, anything looser than that, then you definitely want the dried ginger. So in a formula, I'm just trying to think how we would do this, because that's a good question. How much ginger is too much? So there's formula, so for a start, Chinese medicine doesn't use one herb by itself, ever. I can't say ever, but it's very rare. We don't prescribe one herb by itself. So your question's right, like what should you add to your ginger to make it more potent? Well, they're more like you won't be able to get them just from the shelves, like from the supermarkets or whatever. They're proper medicine herbs. So there's a formula that ginger is in, that practitioners would use, and that is called Li Zhong 1, and that is kind of, I'll just put that in the chat. So I'm not prescribing this to you. I'm not suggesting you have it, but I'm just going to use this as an example of how ginger is kind of used in cahoots with some other herbs. So this has got 4 herbs in it, and it's kind of about rectifying the earth, like making the central aspects of your digestion work properly. So you wouldn't use this if you had constipation, because you'd get more constipated, right? It's more for diarrhea and for loose stools. And this kind of a formula would be what I give my patients when they are traveling, like if they get travel sick, not nauseous, travel sick, but I'm talking like, you get diarrhea and you get food poisoning, or Bali belly, we call it, if you go over to Bali in Australia. I have these weird words for these things. With dried ginger, in this formula, it's got baiju, which is another herb that kind of dries the damp. It's got renshen, which is ginseng, and ginseng kind of puts fluids back into your body. So you think, well, why would there be a formula for dampness where you're putting fluids in, but you're also drying the fluids? That doesn't make sense. It completely makes sense, because if we want to dry up the damp fluids, but we want to make sure that your body's got plenty of moisture to actually perfuse the body. So a lot of people who have dampness actually also have dryness. Like they have dry areas in their body, because it's not an issue of too much fluid. It's an issue where your body can't metabolize the fluids it's got. So in Chinese medicine treatment, we're always trying to rectify the physiology, restore the proper function, not give your body something it's missing. It's like we're trying to fix the machine, not just put more oil or petrol in there, if that makes sense. So the Li Zhong one kind of uses that, and it's got licorice in there as well, right? So there's kind of 4 herbs in that formula. So there's nothing I could say colloquially, as in like over-the-counter foodie things that you would put with the ginger, but you would just basically use the ginger to cook with. And I wouldn't use more than 9 grams of ginger a day. Now, 9 grams of ginger is about a thumb of the fresh ginger. So a knob of ginger. If you're in the UK, if you follow Gordon Ramsay, a knob of ginger. That's not an English accent. That was more American, but you get the idea. And so when you dry the ginger, it's going to be heavier. So it's going to look less. If you start getting constipated by adding ginger into your food, you've used probably too much drying. You don't need that much of it. So maybe you use less if that happens. You can use fresh ginger like you would with the dried ginger, but if you've got that looseness, it would definitely be the looseness of the bowels. I'm saying it would definitely be the dried ginger. Dried ginger is hotter and fresh ginger is warm. So warm versus hot. And when you've got damp or mold, you want to blast that yin environment with something very warm. Another food that it could combine with that would make it really warm is lamb. So lamb is a hot food, a warm food. It's one of the hotter kinds of meats, the most yang tonic kind of meats. And then if you cooked lamb with ginger, it would be even stronger. That would be super strong. So in addition to removing any dampening sorts of foods like sweet, sugar, any kind of lower carbohydrates as you can. Just stick to root vegetables as the carbohydrates. Don't have grains and beans and stuff like that as carbohydrates. Like try to avoid all of that sort of stuff. So you're just having like meat and vegetables with the ginger. Try that and see what that does, because that's a very supportive of the earth element. Now, grains also do support the earth in Chinese medicine, but not processed grains. So what I mean by that is like plain white rice or plain wheat that you cook up and you eat that as, not many people eat wheat as a actual food like that. Borscht is a thing that's used in Russian food. I think it's a wheat congee. Or it's either the beetroot one or anyway, they do have wheat as part of their diet as a porridge, right? But you should sort of use that as the third, right? So the first instance would be the meat and the ginger. The second one would be then adding the veggies to that, and then the third one would be adding the carbohydrate sort of grains to your diet. So if you can get by without that, then just use the meat and the veg. And use that as an elimination to sort of see, okay, how do I feel on this? If you go into a ketogenic state, you're probably going to be in a state that prohibits damp growing, and then you add ginger into that state, you're probably going to have a lot of benefit from that kind of a thing. Yep. So I wouldn't have more than 9 grams of ginger a day, and you don't need 9 grams of ginger. You could probably do 3 grams of the 3 to 6 grams of the dried ginger, and just notice how you're feeling with it, right? As in, like, what I'm saying by cooking with it, you don't always eat the ginger. The flavor is kind of infusing into the sauce or the thing you're cooking. Like if you're making a slow cooked meat, just throw some ginger into the pot and it'll just kind of, infuse kind of into it. You could make a tea and then you're drinking the liquid. You're not actually eating the root, the food. So that's kind of how we would think about that. And then like after the Lijiang one sort of thing, there are even more stronger herbs that herbalists can give you, Chinese herbalists, to really increase that yang, like make that, like strengthen that yang a lot, so that it makes the body as inhospitable as it possibly can be to that mold, that damp environment. Yep. Wow, I can't believe it's like 12 o'clock here already. Okay, I better stop eventually this stream. But it's been great. Look, good to connect with people. Was very busy a bit earlier, so that's good. And good that I've got the time to do this, but now I've got to get on with my other stuff before my patients come in. So hope you're doing well. And yes, Liz says I've got a lot of ginger at home. I have to powder the dried and the fresh. Great, so you've got all of it there. So powdered and dried is the same thing, right? They've just powdered it. It'd basically be just getting this dried ginger and putting it in a grinder, and that'd be the powdered stuff. Cool. If we blend it as a juice, should we eat the fibers as well? You can. Like, there's no issue with eating fresh ginger. So normally for people who are, if I have a vegan person that won't stop being a vegan and they aren't also going to stop drinking smoothies, then I'll just say put a knob of ginger into your smoothie. And so they're going to eat it all. Yeah, they're going to eat the fibers. They're going to eat everything. There's nothing wrong with eating ginger. Like people eat it every day in foods, right? Like it's in a lot of Chinese cuisines. They just cut it up small and, mix it into the food. Ginger can be candied. I'm not saying do that, but it is a commonly used food. As well as a medicine. So yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I recommend it so much, because it's easy to get, and the same ginger that you buy in the supermarket is the same ginger we use as the food. Whereas something like cinnamon, there's like 20 to 50 varieties of cinnamon in the world, and the cinnamons that you buy over the counter to cook with is not the same cinnamon that Chinese medicine uses. But with ginger, it is the same thing. It's only one. It just is ginger is ginger, as far as I know. Okay, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure about that. So yeah, good. Thank you for subscribing, and glad you turned on the notifications. Hopefully we'll be able to catch each other on another stream. And if people have a question, they're watching this after the fact, and they want to think, oh no, I missed it, and I want to ask a question, just put your questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it in the next time. Usually when I start the stream, I'll start off with the questions that have been missed from the previous ones, or comments from other videos and whatnot. So excuse me. Thank you everyone for your attention. Cool. And I look forward to seeing you again on another video soon. Awesome.